I remember in high school, the super caffeinated drink that I drank a few times was called Bawls. Did you guys ever drink Bawls?
Yes! You did not just say Bawls. You did not just say that. I used to drink Bawls all the time, and that was the best joke.
Who's drinking Bawls?
Oh my god, it was.
I drank Bawls.
It tasted like cotton candy, kind of.
Yeah.
And they sold it. They sold it at this store in the mall called Metro Park. That was literally a store for metrosexual men, and it was like so ahead of its time because this was like what 2004 or whatever, and it was like just like the end of like the emo wave, beginning of the scene craze where it was like, oh, men can like shave their beards nice now and they can wear shirts that don't suck. And so it was sold at that store. So me and all my metrosexual guy friends, we'd like go in, pick them up an eyebrow ring, and then we'd get just like a fistful of balls. And it was so good.
This sounds like a South Park episode. Like this
It
entire
does.
thing.
There's a South Park episode that's all about that. I remember
Balls?
I didn't know. No, it's about metrosexuality.
I know that.
Yeah, but
And
it
balls.
feels
Why
like
not
they could. They also talk about balls a lot in
That's true.
South Park. They say balls all the time in South Park.
I'm sorry I screamed so loud. Not only am I super duper high right now because I know we're going to be talking for 2 hours and I can't smoke for 2 hours, and I'm a chain I'm a chain weed smoker, Tariq. I'm sorry, but it's just when like normally if you see me, I'm just constantly chain smoking a joint.
It's
I'm
fine.
I'm like Dave Chappelle but with weed, and so I knew I was gonna.
I wish we knew ahead of time so we could all just match your energy and do like the most disjointed season 3 Rick and Morty podcast possible. That'd be rad.
I think to bring that level of energy though, I would have needed to drink balls because when I get
wanted
stoned,
to explain that like not only is that why I screamed, but I never thought I was gonna hear somebody say that word ever again. Like not the word balls, obviously, but Bawls, BAWLS, the energy drink. I don't think I ever thought I would hear another human being talk about balls again. You just blew my fucking mind. Like I can't even tell you how much that rocked my world, John.
It's so funny because I didn't know where to get it, but there was one kid in my school who was was the supplier, and I remember being like him. He like had a few. Yeah, basically. Ironically, he was also a weed dealer, so I guess he really dabbled in a lot of stuff. But I remember like English class freshman year, him being like, "Yo, dude, you want to buy some balls?" I was like, you know what? I do. Give me your balls, good sir.
What is this era that I missed? Is this what? See, because that's the thing. We always talk about the generational gap. I grew up with this show and I grew up with that show. Y'all grew up with balls.
We grew up with
balls. The balls generation.
The balls generation. That's what we should be called. Yeah.
Well, fuck the word millennials. What the shit is that?
Millennials.
Millennials.
I like that for you guys.
Thank you.
We're gonna own it. We're gonna own it.
We are, John. I swear to God, this is gonna be my new goal for like your next birthday gift, man.
Balls.
I have a full year to track down like an ancient case of balls on eBay for you.
Does it exist still, or is it done?
According
to Amazon,
there's no way it can still exist, but you can get it on Amazon.
You can get a 35. You can get a 12 pack for $35 right now.
Balls
I was gonna say we would need to do like a Dunkaroos campaign where you and I use this podcast as a platform to start campaigning to get balls.
Bring back balls.
Bring back balls. Bring back
hashtag bring back balls.
She's on the screen.
I feel like I'm far away and you guys are close. Or am I just high?
Maybe you can't just get closer. Yeah, maybe. All right, cute theme song.
I've been watching them for years. It's always been something that fit with all the animated characters that's doing their own bits. With a fry who's in the future and a family guy that sucks. With a father from a hill, a burger family runs amok. The show inspires is the same guy, except he totally say and diverse.
Let's watch cartoons that curse.
Yeah, that's bananas.
That's rough.
What the f is up, everybody? Welcome to Cartoons That Curse. I'm Johnny. I'm here with my co-host Tariq.
Yo.
And we're here with our guest, Whitney Van Lanningham, who you may know from Nerdwire, formerly of Nerdwire, currently of WhitneyVision, which y'all should go check out ASAP. Whitney, welcome.
Okay, first things first. What is the name of this? Is this podcast Cartoons That Curse?
Mm-hmm. Did you double book?
Yeah,
I thought that this was Cartoons That Christ, and I'm a little. Is this how are we going to talk about the glory of the Lord and how that relates to Rick and Morty on this show today? Or are we going to say fuck a lot?
Praise. We're going to say fuck a lot, but and honestly, probably very little religious talk, unless it relates to Rick and Morty.
I know. I'm really sad that it's not season 4, because then we could talk about Jesus's cum gutters. It's a great season 4 episode, but we're talking about season 3 today.
We're talking about season 3 of Rick and Morty today. We are. I'm very excited. Whitney, I'm really excited to have Whitney on. Whitney is one of my very best good friends. I met her through talking about cartoons on the internet, much like I met Tariq. And now Whitney and I are actually IRL BFFs. We hang out all the time.
It's cool.
It is cool.
I feel so cool that I'm actually friends with you. Like it's like I'm like such a dork because I'm like really a huge fan of you. But then also now I get to be your friend. So it's cool. I'm living the dream, you guys.
Back
so
at
jealous.
I'm very excited to talk about Rick and Morty with you, because I don't think I know anyone personally who likes Rick and Morty more than you do. So,
I was listening to you guys' last episode, and I decided I was listening to it while I was in the shower today, and I realized that my mission today is to bring you out at the end of this podcast episode with a little bit more love for Rick and Morty than when you went into it, because I clearly think that I love Rick and Morty more than anyone here. And I'm going to try to convince you guys why this season is fucking great. I'm going to try to get you guys to feel slightly more love for this season, maybe, than your feelings on season 1.
Honestly, honestly, I'll say right off the bat, I think this was not what I expected, but I think I do like season 3 more than season 1. And before we had started this podcast, before I rewatched, my opinion was pretty much, I like season 1 the best, and then I like season 2, and then 3, and then 4. I was like pretty much in order. Like that's how I liked it. And rewatching, 1 went down a little bit for me, and 3 went up a little bit for me. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Dude, hell yeah.
So season 3 of Rick and Morty is the first season of Rick and Morty that it was like a sensation for. Rick and Morty was popular before it, but like between seasons 2 and 3 was when it became the biggest cartoon on TV. The fan base grew exponentially, and for better and worse. But it's a bigger fan base at this point. So, and it was also the longest wait between seasons. So there was like a year and a half between seasons 2 and 3. People were getting antsy, and then they surprise dropped the premiere of season 3 on April Fool's Day. It was like a reverse April Fool, where they were like, they just didn't tell anyone. They were like, we're going to air season 3 episode 1 without announcing it. And people started watching. We're like, what is this? Is this a new episode of Rick and Morty? And sure enough, it was a new episode of Rick and Morty. And then there was another long gap between episode 1 and 2. So like that point in time was, I think, when the fan base became a little frustrating for a lot of people. That was like the Szechuan era. Like the Szechuan sauce thing happened in 301, right?
Right.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you guys, this is going to be my first question. So where were you guys when the Szechuan incident hit? Like, what were you guys doing when the riots took place? Because for a Rick and Morty fan, that day was like our 9/11. Like, where were you? You need to tell me.
Oh man,
I was here.
Yeah,
here.
I remember
in this very spot.
I specifically remember that was when I was kind of like, oh, maybe I don't tell everyone I love Rick and Morty now.
It did kind of turn into that, right? Like, I was never like a humongous fan. I did always like the show and I always thought it was cool. But like when that happened, like at first it was kind of, I saw it pick up in popularity and I was like, oh, okay, like that's cool. Like that there's finally like a cartoon that like adults are latching onto, because you know there was like Adventure Time and stuff like that. But like there's a cartoon that adults are latching onto, and I thought that was rad. But when like videos started surfacing of like dudes,
where's
just,
my
like,
Szechuan sauce?
Yeah, so I was like, wait, what is like I'm like, so they're joking, right? But like, but there's way too many people in there for it to be a skit. So like, they're serious. It's so wild. It
was weird. I mean, I think that guy thought he was doing a bit. It was just a cringy bit, you know. Like it was, and it was still like negatively affecting the people he was doing it to. You know, it was like this isn't funny enough to warrant jumping on the counter at McDonald's.
Yeah, there was. I feel like season 3, episode 1 of Rick and Morty was definitely when kind of like the major cultural shift happened with the fans, because beforehand it was like seasons 1 and 2, right? Like the kind of like toxic fandom banner that they all flew under was kind of the, oh, well, you have to be really smart to get Rick and Morty, right? Like that was the first one. That was like the first wave of the toxic Rick and Morty fandom. And then this wave was the fans who suddenly decided that it wasn't just enough to have to be smart to get Rick and Morty. You now had to be like Rick about everything to be a true Rick and Morty fan. Okay. And so it was these dudes who were just going off the rails, who were going to McDonald's and they were demanding this shit, because in their minds they were like, well, this is what Rick would do, right? Like Rick does this. He goes to the McDonald's, he demands the sauce, he builds a whole time machine portal. What if we all go? What if we all do this? And it kind of like kicked off just this era of Rick and Morty fuckboys who like decided that was a great idea. And then it just kind of continued spiraling out from there.
Yeah, it's and you know, I feel like it's been, as time's gone on, I mean, I don't know, I don't talk about Rick and Morty that much on my channel, but it feels like that was the peak. Like it feels like they're still got some problems, but like I don't think nothing has happened since then that's been like that level of is this really the Rick and Morty fandom? You know what I mean? Yeah. But it is like, it can definitely be a frustrating fandom. And I know like for seasons 1 and 2, I was just at the forefront of like, I love Rick and Morty. People should watch Rick and Morty. Like this show's really good. And after this stuff, I was kind of like I don't tell people anymore. I'm like, yeah, I like Rick and Morty, but I'm not like them. You know what I mean? I'm not like that. Yeah. But that being said, I think while the fandom can have some frustrating and toxic tendencies, I don't think that should be a reflection of the show, because I do think the show is still, and the show is still really good. And you know, rewatching, and that's
also
season
so
3,
far from what the creators want their fan base to be like. Exactly. And they joke about it all the time for that reason, because the easiest and the best way to call those kind of toxic fans, or whatever you want to call them, out is to make fun of them on the show itself, which they do. Right.
And season 4 does some good fun stuff with that. But
they do.
Season 3. So season 3 is April Fool's Day episode, the 301, the Rickshank Rickdemption, which is actually a follow-up to the season 2 finale. So season 2 finale, Rick gets arrested. He turns himself in for the sake of his family, gets arrested. And so like everything is different at the beginning of this episode. He is in prison, and then also this Galactic Federation has pretty much taken over Earth. And like you see Jerry thriving because he fits it in as a cog in this intergalactic federation.
Pills.
Yeah.
Eat your pills.
Eat your pills. I really liked, I really, you know, it was part of me wanted to see like, oh, could they pull off this new change in status quo for the whole season? Obviously they didn't want to, but I think it would have been a fun thing to see if they had tried to. But I really like the Rickshank Rickdemption. How do you guys think? Whitney, what do you think about the Rickshank Rickdemption? I can't say these titles. Too many words.
Rickshank Rickdemption. Take it slow. Yeah, no, I really like this episode. I thought that it was incredibly smart. There are so many lines in it that just like, I don't know about you guys, but like when like there's just like a real good line and it just like hits you right in the gut and you're like, ugh. Like I like get goosebumps at least twice from 2 different lines in this episode, where it feels so perfect and the moment just feels so like crescendoed and awesome. So any episode that makes me feel like that even once, I think is a good one. But this one, there was just so many smart things, so many unexpected things, a lot of just amazing fucking jokes that came out of this episode. I got my favorite guy right here. This is my SEAL team. My SEAL team Rick.
Oh no!
And I keep him with me at all times. I also have this hairstyle.
All times you carry it with you everywhere.
I do carry it with me everywhere.
Oh my god, you have
I have 3 actually. The other one's behind there, and I don't feel like standing up. But yeah, no, I obviously fucking love this episode. It's good.
I like how this episode it feels like this is both funny and not only builds off of the finale of last season, but brings in all of this lore from the beginning of the show too. Like this is such a lore heavy episode. Plus it's funny. Like the fact that they went back to that Cronenberg universe is so cool. Like something I didn't expect them to do. And I also like, it also kind of sets the stage for like how people are, I don't know. It kind of sets the stage for Rick and the family for the season. Because I really like the scene where Morty is fed up. He is just so fed up with Rick at this point. And Summer's like, we need to get Rick back. Like we can't do this. And Morty's like, dude, he bails on everybody. Like why we don't need Rick. Like Rick doesn't help us, he doesn't care about us. And I like that shows how much the events of the season 2 finale like really genuinely affected Morty. And it feels like this is kind of a turning point for Morty's character for seasons 3 and 4.
There's Morty says a line, just going off what you were talking about, just between him and Summer. He says a line that I think might be the best written line in this show so far, at least from like the point that we're at right now, where he says, he's not a villain, Summer, but he's not a hero. I thought that was like,
he's not a villain, Summer, but he shouldn't be your hero.
Yeah, so, I thought that was brilliant. That was a really, really good line.
That is really good.
It says a lot about his characterization and stuff that I really appreciate.
Yeah, that's also a line that some of those fans could take to heart.
No, seriously, it really is. And full circle.
In the episode, never mind, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I really like this episode too, because we have in the past obviously seen Morty kind of at the end of his rope with Rick, but I think that this was like the first time that he really is just like fucking over his shit. And he actually wants him to be gone this time. He wants to teach him a lesson. He doesn't want to have to fucking jump in there with Summer and go guns a-blazing to get him back. But the thing that I really love is that even after he takes her back to Cronenberg world and shows her like the fucking destruction of the past family and the past, like, and just like the wreckage that Rick leaves in his path when he leaves and the stuff that we don't get to see as viewers and Summer doesn't get to see left behind because she goes home after the adventure. But Rick and Morty are still always having to kind of go back and clean stuff up, or at least be aware of the fact that shit's really fucked up elsewhere. And the part that like just totally fucking gives me goosebumps is when they're in court and like the Council of Ricks is like, all right, denounce your Rick and we'll let you go. And Summer's like, I'll never denounce Rick, but like, you should just let my brother go because he's already denounced him. And Morty says the whole line about the villain, but I fucking love the part where he gets all gung-ho, just Grandpa's #1 fan and like just lets it rip, and he's just like, if you think that my Rick is dead, he's alive, and if you think he's alive, he's already got you. And it's just like fires you the fuck up, really, and you realize that like despite the fact that Morty has reached that breaking point, underneath it all, this really still is an episode about a boy and his grandpa, and this boy does love his grandpa even when he's fucking fed up with him, and even when he is trying to hold him accountable, have others in his life hold him accountable, bring him off his fucking god pedestal. It doesn't matter, he still fucking loves him. And I just that moment is so good for me. I love it more than anything.
It also feels like that really sets the stage, because having just rewatched seasons 1 and 2, it feels like the end, like towards the end of season 2 and especially into the season, is really when like Rick becomes a god. Like Rick before is just like he was a genius madman, but he becomes a god in this season, for better or worse. You know, like it's and that line I think especially sets that up, and I really love the delivery a lot, and also the fact that it was just true. Like we knew Rick was coming for them all, and Morty's like, yeah.
But just the faith that he had in him in that moment too was just so like beautiful and pure, because like even Summer thought he was probably dead, right? But Morty fucking knew, you know? And it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I will say, okay, so there's one thing, even though I said that I really like the continuity here, there's one thing that I felt was a little out of place. So they dig up Rick's dead body from the other from that universe and grab his portal gun. And I feel like that Rick would not have had that oversight of leaving the extra portal gun on his dead body.
Yeah, you know why would he ever do that? No, he would never just leave a fucking portal gun in a grave. That's insane.
Exactly. But it was like at least a fun way to connect back to like the first season and everything. But it was a little bit like, well, if Rick is really this god we know of, like he wouldn't have just left that portal gun there. That never would have happened.
It's like, that's true. Like, yeah, he has like every fucking like everything mapped out so perfectly like that. But at the same time, he's drunk a lot. So I don't know, you know, like maybe like maybe he dropped the portal gun.
That's fair.
Maybe he was pissing into the grave, you know, one late night, dropped the portal gun. I don't fucking, you know, we don't know. We don't know what happens.
I also just really like how the aftermath of this episode, like, this changes the whole status quo of like the larger universe. So like obviously in this episode they destroy that Galactic Federation, like the Federation that quote unquote controls the universe, who's trying to get the portal technology from Rick, destroyed, completely destroyed, and he kills the Council of Ricks. And then he also kills the Council of Ricks and like totally fucks up the entire Citadel of Ricks. It like completely upends their society. Everything. Like the society. Yeah, exactly. And so obviously we see the results of that later in the season. But, you know, it's cool because watching this episode the first time, it was kind of just like, oh, this is just how Rick got out of this. But the fact that this would have lasting implications for the Rick and Morty universe at large, I think is really cool. I think the moment that I laughed the most in this is at the end when Rick comes back and into the family, and Beth's just like, never leave me again. And Jerry immediately gives her the ultimatum, like it's him or me. And it's just silence, just silence.
Jerry's going to spend some time divorced.
It's the best way anyone's ever broken a divorce. Oh man,
so
I like
funny.
low-key want to get divorced one day so that I can just say that to someone. Baby, you're gonna spend some time divorced now.
Marrying to divorce is so funny.
I also like how the ending of this first episode parallels the ending of the very first episode of the show, with him being like, "We're gonna do this a lot, Morty," but it's like new dialogue, and he's saying it's our darkest season of adventures, Morty. You know, like darkest season yet, Morty. It's fun. I really like this episode. I think this is like a really strong season premiere. And honestly, like this is up there for me. Probably a top 10, maybe higher episode of Rick and Morty. But I forgot that the tag was where they introduced Phoenix Person.
Yes.
Forgot that.
Yeah.
Which I'm not, which doesn't come into play till season 4, right? Like that's they tease it, and then it's like not a thing for 2 more seasons.
Right.
Yeah, this season they definitely had a lot of, I felt like there was a lot of instances in which they knew that they had to put things in there, but they really just didn't kind of have any room for it. And that was what all of the post like credits scenes felt like none of them really felt like they added anything. They kind of all felt like, and we'll talk about this sometime next season.
Yeah, there's a lot of that for sure. Yeah. Or just like quick jokes. There's some quick jokes like there's some there's always some Jerry jokes at Jerry's expense.
Oh, the Jerry jokes. Yeah.
Cool. Do you guys have any other thoughts about the premiere of the season before we move on?
I feel like I agree with everything you're saying. I think it's a great opener. I think it's a phenomenal opener. I think it's you can't really think of a stronger way to open this season. I didn't find this one super funny, but it made up for it because of how it was paced and how it was put together, and it just kept moving. It kept going. It really did feel like a Prison Break, like an action adventure film, the way it was put together. And I love it has like a lot of little moments that I like, especially like the quote that I said. I really love the standoff where like, you know, Morty like pulls the gun out and everything like that. I really enjoy.
That was so fucked up shit. We do have to talk about that real quick before we move on. I totally forgot. That was actually so fucked up because that was, not only was that like Morty hitting his rope, going back to fully believing in his grandpa, and then going to the point where he would fucking kill him all in one episode. Like that emotional range is just bonkers banana pants.
Yeah, I think it speaks to the real emotional journey and like that Morty goes on in any, just within his life with Rick. Like, I think it really illustrates the variety of emotions he can feel, and kind of the reason that you could tell at the beginning of this episode, he was just like, don't get Rick back. It will like throw my life out of whack again, you know? Like, yeah, it's interesting. You know what? The other thing that I forgot we didn't talk about is, they said it was, they imply that it was completely fabricated, but do you guys think there's any truth to the memory of like Rick's origin or whatever, with Beth's mom being killed in like his memory, even though he just used it as a means to get out of prison? Do you think there was any nuggets of truth to that?
Man, I wrote that down to ask you. Because I didn't know.
I don't know either.
Like, what the hell are they? I don't know.
I mean, it's definitely like, I mean, he flat out says it was fabricated, but I do feel like there are things in it that were probably accurate. Like, we'll actually talk about this later. I'll talk about this one more in the season, but I do feel like the way that the Rick came to him to be like, hey, do you want to join up with the other Ricks? You're about to invent a portal gun. To me, the way he did that lines up with a lot of the things we learn later in the season, in a very Rick's heavy episode that we'll talk about later. So I guess I'll cover that when we get to that episode. But I'm really curious about this because we don't know anything about Beth's mom. We don't know. We know nothing. Yeah.
I don't even. That's the thing about that scene though, is that you don't even know if that's like actually her design, right?
Yeah, you don't even know if that's really what
does she even look like.
Right. Like, I don't know. And I think that's just a thing about me in this show, because while you know, when you spend time with it and you watch it in order, you realize like, oh, okay, that's just kind of what this show is. The show does a lot of you thought this, but it's actually not this. It's actually this. Like, you know, and like it puts us in like that spot really, really often. But it does kind of make it hard to attach yourself to moments sometime, because I want to be attached to Rick instead of just like, ha ha ha, he's funny. Like, I want to like, like there's obviously something going on up there, and this the cockiness and the God complex that they give him makes it really, really hard to see through that. Because I think the first time I saw this one, I thought it was like rad. I thought it was like, well, like, I can't believe he's doing this and he's doing that. Like he's going insane. And on rewatch, I still think the episode is really rad, but Rick himself, it kind of becomes a little disengaging, I guess, on rewatch. Just because, like, yeah, okay, I know he's going to figure it out. He's going to figure this out because he always figures it out. He always figures that out and everything like that. And I don't know. I guess I appreciate the defeat more, but they do hammer in this season that this Rick in particular cares more than the average one.
Totally.
Which is interesting, which I do think is really interesting. It's something that you catch when you aren't just looking at it on the surface. But
yeah,
I don't know, that's something I struggled with, was just like the whole
I think I agree, because season two, especially the season 2 finale, does really go a long way for, like, it's those moments where we see Rick alone, where we're like, he's really himself. Like, you have that moment at the end of the Unity episode where he almost kills himself, and then you have that moment at the end of the finale of last season where he goes into the cave on the tiny planet and he hears the family talking about him, and like he knows that no one is seeing how he reacts. So we get his genuine like self in that moment, and that's when he decides to go turn himself in. So like it does feel like the show gives us some of those moments. But then sometimes, like in this episode, like you said, it will give us a moment like that where it feels like, oh, we're finally getting to the core of Rick. Psych! Not really.
I'll psych him on.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, like, that's also part of the charm of the character, is that he's so broken and he's so dysfunctional that you can't even possibly get to know him, because that's who the fuck he is. He's that fucked up.
I just hope that, like, through all of this huge pickup of, we still have 60 more episodes at least of this show, that they really start to, like, I really hope they start to break that down, break down that wall of like, those walls that he puts up, because we get to see a little bit as it goes on. But, if we just get 60 more episodes of what it is now without really, diving deeper into the core of Rick, then I think I would be a little disappointed. But I feel like they're getting there. I feel like they're moving there. So.
Oh, they gunsta.
Yeah.
It's happening.
All right. Well, now's a good time to move on to 302. We talked a long time about that first episode.
Oh, yeah. Geez, that was a lot.
That's okay. It's a lot to talk about. 302 is Rickmancing the Stone, which is basically the Mad Max parody episode.
Yeah. What if you got divorced and also Mad Max?
And also Mad Max.
Featuring Mad Max.
Mad Max.
I will say, so like we've talked about this a lot in our first 2 episodes about how like they are prone to sometimes just doing movie parodies, especially in season 1. And this has definitely got like a lot of movie parody action going for it. And so I think overall this episode is a little less interesting to me premise wise, but I do think it has some really interesting stuff to say about the characters, which is kind of to me the highlight. Like, I don't know, like the Morty arm thing is pretty funny, but what I love about the Morty arm thing is like him airing his grievances about his dad while he's doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The arm is just an outlet for him to express his feelings about his parents' divorce.
Exactly. Yeah, I think this was a really like smart way of dealing with the divorce. Just kind of putting them somewhere else and like turning it into just like this really big vent trip. Like, you know what I mean? Like I really appreciated that. I thought that was an interesting and smart way to deal with it, because they're pretty overt, but they aren't like relentlessly overt. Being relentlessly overt, right, would just be like Beth, Rick, Morty, Summer sit down in the living room and talk about their emotions. But like, no, that's not really how life works. They kind of just like, Summer just doesn't want to deal with it. You know what I mean? And like Morty's like, well, maybe we should. And they both realize like we have to get this out somehow. You know what I mean? I appreciate that. I thought that was like a really smart way to go about that.
Agreed. I also like, I think the stuff that they do back with Beth too, where like Rick builds the robots. I really love Robot Morty gaining sentience. I thought that was a really funny moment. He's like, and also the like, I like I feel like I wish they would. I mean, I guess some of the episodes do, but like that was such a funny moment. But part of me was like, oh, I want to see Robot Morty's story. Like, I want to see more Robot Morty.
Also, I just want to see them finish a game of fucking Downbeat, dude. Like, I need to know how this ends. They play it all the time, and I never see how it goes. And I just, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
I want to play Downbeat.
Whitney, how do you think? How do you feel about Rickmancing the Stone? Do you like this episode?
Yeah, I do like this episode. I've actually never seen Mad Max, Fury Road, or otherwise.
It's okay, me neither.
So
it's all right.
You guys haven't seen any of those movies?
Nah, we're heathens.
So that's why I was gonna say like it being like the Mad Max parody doesn't really bother me because I don't know what that is. To me, I'm just like these guys were running around in funny costumes in the desert. And they enjoy it, and they like
Mad
it.
Max.
That's Mad Max. No, I mean, I obviously I know what Mad Max is about, but I've never seen the movie. So if there's any specific references, I'm just enjoying the scenery.
Yeah.
I wish that I had a gigantic cage match after my parents' divorce. Sorry, what?
You guys should watch Fury Road at least.
Okay.
Like the original trilogy is cool, but like Fury Road is so
okay,
good.
John, what do you want me to watch? Movie. Do you want me to watch Fury Road or Paddington 2? Because I can only do one.
You're gonna do this? We're gonna do this on the pod. Rules. The answer is Paddington 2. The answer is Paddington 2.
Hey, okay. Wait, can we talk about Paddington 2 for a second? Yo,
Paddington 2 break. Let's do it.
Paddington 2 break. Okay, intermission.
So in college, right? My best friend in college name is Ed. Ed has this really weird thing where if there's something that he wants me to see, he'll make it his obsession and it won't leave my life until I end up seeing it. And then I just never hear about it again.
Dude, that's like what John is doing to me with Paddington fucking 2.
That's what he did to me with Paddington 2.
Not every day, just most days.
Ed would constantly.
Often as you text me about the witches and you've got mail, so it's a lot.
Ed would consistently just say, "Yo, you should watch Paddington 2. You gotta watch Paddington 2." And it's not the only movie he's done that with. He's done that with The Irishman. He's done that with the Letterbox app. That's why I had the stupid app on my phone because he kept doing this.
Dude,
you should get on Letterbox.
Letterbox rules. He was right. Yeah,
but he.
I'm too old for that.
What, Letterbox?
It's a social media platform where you can log all the movies you watch and give them a star, like rating out of 5 stars. It's really great.
It's just a vehicle for promoting Paddington 2, is what you're saying.
Well, if you got on Letterboxd, I probably would comment Paddington 2 on all your reviews. So yes,
this is how. Actually, you know what? No, because I feel you because. John, this is how much of a psychopath Johnny is. Johnny finds, because Ed eventually got me to watch Paddington 2, and I loved it. I thought it was dope. But that was like 1.5 years ago. Johnny somehow goes and finds my Paddington 2 review. He's like, only 4 stars? What the hell is wrong with you? I'm like,
dude, he's on this. He's on his Paddington game. It's okay. A lot.
Let me talk about Paddington 2 real quick. First of all, the only reason I went and looked at your review is because of the thing of it surpassing Citizen Kane on Rotten Tomatoes, which happened the other day, which is really funny to me. But that's also hilarious. I think it speaks to how great Paddington 2 is. So that happened, and I just went on Letterboxd and I looked at. You can go and look at a movie, and you can see how everyone else on your friend list has reviewed it. And so I saw Tariq, one of the only people who gave it less than 4.5 stars on my friend list, and I was like,
4 stars.
So you're not a 5-star Paddington man?
I am a 5-star Paddington man.
No, I know you are, but Tariq.
No,
you're not.
You gotta rewatch
I don't know why. I actually don't remember why.
You got to rewatch it. You'll still give it 5 stars next time. But the reason that the reason that I'm so like vehement about people watching Paddington 2 is because for so long, people kept telling me Paddington and Paddington 2 are great. And in my mind, I was just like, there is no way that is true. Like in my brain, I was like, that cannot be true. I do not see it. I do not understand. I don't understand how this could possibly be the case. And I finally sat down and I watch both movies, and they are fucking delightful. They are
no,
truly...
honestly, there's a huge part of me that thinks this is just a bit, John.
It's not a bit.
It's not a bit.
I don't know if I believe you. Like, I think that maybe you're just a guy who thought it would be funny if you got obsessed with Paddington 2.
Dude, 100%
No,
on Rotten
okay.
Tomatoes.
Because
100%.
I thought the exact same way about my friend Ed. I'm like, Ed,
I'm so skeptical.
I don't know if you think this is funny, Ed, but it's not funny anymore. You just keep coming over here and telling me to watch Paddington 2. And then I finally watched it. Mind you, okay, me or Ed have never seen the first Paddington, and I still haven't.
You should. Paddington 1 is also good, but 2 is better.
I don't even have that on my docket. That's not even on my radar. I have only heard about Paddington 2.
We're going to watch both, Whitney. We're going to watch both, I promise.
It rules. It's a good movie. It's
so good. It's so good. But the reason that I bug you about it so much is because when I started, like, I was hanging out at your house and I was telling you about Paddington 2, and you straight up to my face thought I was doing a bit, and I'm like,
no,
I get that you think I'm doing a bit, but I'm not. And like, as I left the house, you were still so like derisive towards my Paddington 2 thing, and I was like, I'm telling you, it's great.
I'm still not convinced that this isn't just a super long bit, and you're gonna you're gonna pop out one day and you're gonna be like, haha, Paddington 2 sucks. You fucking fell for it. You dumbass bitch! I got you with the long con. I'm still convinced you're gonna do that.
My biggest dream for the film industry in general is that I want Paddington to have as many movies as the Fast and Furious franchise. It deserves that. Like Paddington is that good. Give me P3. You know, P3 needs to happen ASAP.
P3 Tokyo Drift.
Tokyo Drift, man. I would kill to see Paddington in Tokyo. That is legitimately
Paddington in Tokyo sounds
a lovely premise for a Paddington movie.
All right, well, who in Paddington is gonna die in a horrific like car accident?
Well, you need to watch Paddington to know the characters first. So we'll talk about it after you watch them.
Who's the Paul Walker of Paddington 2?
Oh my gosh.
Oh man. Literally though, like, and I haven't met anyone who's seen Paddington 2 and doesn't think it's very good.
Yeah,
at the very
me neither.
least. So like, I'm telling you, Paddington 2 is great. End of Paddington 2 tangent. It was worth it. We need to keep talking about Rick and Morty.
Okay,
we might have another one. I don't know. I'm scared.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not gonna lie. We're gonna find out that the sponsor of this fucking episode is Paddington 2.
Johnny just didn't tell anyone.
If Paddington sponsored anything I did, I would be the happiest man in the world. I wouldn't need anything else.
You would be honestly, the happiest little knockoff Pooh Bear this galaxy's ever seen.
Yo, that's
he doesn't like that. Yeah, he doesn't like that. He saw his face change. He's like, wait a minute, like, we're not doing a podcast anymore.
Paddington Bear is a very old franchise. It's not just a thing that came out because of like Paddington started in the 50s, so it's not a knockoff of Winnie the Pooh.
Who would win in a fight of scarlet fever, Paddington or Velveteen Rabbit?
Do you guys think we could get Paddington on the podcast? It would be a pretty good guess.
That'd be pretty rad.
I think he'd do it.
Maybe
what show do you think he likes?
Rick and Morty season 4. Paddington comes on and he's just like, oh man, I love Jesus's cum gutters in that one episode. That's all I want from my man Paddington.
Oh,
just
my God.
Sweet spot on a podcast.
All right, well, we're going to...
okay, so episode 2 of Rick and Morty, right?
Yeah, we've already talked about a lot of it. But Whitney, we're going to watch both Paddingtons soon, and let's talk about Rick and Morty.
Now let's
Where even were we? Should we just move on to the third episode?
Well,
yeah, probably.
Let's talk about.
I do. There's 2 things about this episode that I really like.
All right.
And one of them is a thing that happens in the whole season. It's the animation, the acting on these characters in this season is gorgeous. Like throughout the entire season, like they go through a gigantic range of expressions, and like they're always like moving their arms and everything like that, and it's all really, really expressive. Rick and Morty is animated in a way that I think other shows think that they're animated, but they aren't. Like it really is like that gorgeous, even down to like the Morty arm. The arm like does the the Hulk Hogan thing. Like, it's so funny. Like,
yes,
it's really is great.
I love that. I think this is the season where Wes Archer took over as supervising director. So
I saw his name. I remember the first time I saw Rickshank, Wes Archer was the first name. Like, I usually don't look at the names at the bottom, but for some reason my eye locked on Wes, and I said, "Oh shit!" Like, and I don't know. You know, he's got so much time in the game that I guess you could see his fingerprints. And lastly, I just like that Rick called Buddy E.B. White. That's pretty good. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
I thought the mustache conversation was really funny when the guy takes off his helmet and
Isn't
they
the
have a whole
helmet
conversation.
a kind of mustache? In a way?
You guys have the term "hat on a hat."
You guys have the term "hat on a hat"?
It's a funny episode, but yeah, I especially like the character work and the ways that it talks about Morty and Summer kind of airing out their frustrations with their whole situation with their parents. Right. And it's it's not my favorite of the season, but it still has all of these little things about it that like I think make it stand out and do some good character work for these guys. You guys, any other thoughts before we move on to the probably the most infamous episode of Rick and Morty?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. 303, Pickle Rick. This episode is self-explanatory. This is Pickle Rick.
Okay, so my only like weird thing that I have with this episode is like, okay, so we literally just had a whole fucking episode where like Summer and Morty are working out their daddy divorce issues on this like wasteland playground, and Morty like murders a guy, like all this, you know, like Morty murders several guys, but like at the end he has to like actually kill somebody, all that jazz. But then I'm like, okay, so then why is your bitch ass peeing your pants in class now? Like, you just were like doing this whole epic thing, and now you're so upset about the divorce that you pissed yourself in social studies. Like why? Like, you were just a warrior king. So that's the only part that like I felt like it just was a disconnect to me, and I think that was kind of a little.
I think that's fair.
Whoopsie.
My general opinion of this episode is that culturally it's annoying as shit, but in execution I think it's a solid episode.
Well, it's like the Szechuan shit all over again.
Right. Like the thing that was frustrating about Pickle Rick was that it was a meme before it aired, because it was heavily featured in the trailer leading up to the bulk of season 3. And so literally even before this episode aired, people were obsessed with Pickle Rick. And I was so over it already. Like before this episode aired, I was like, I don't care about Pickle Rick. And I think it kind of speaks to the episode that it actually won me over when I went in being like, God, I don't care about this. and then coming out, I was like, you know what? That was pretty fun. That was a pretty good
Honestly, Pickle Rick is just great. And I do think that it sucks that kind of like the bullshit surrounding this episode soured that experience for so many people. Because that's a pretty common fucking thing to hear from any Rick and Morty fan, is like, oh, but the fucking Pickle Rick bullshit. Yeah, like, and there was just so many. I mean, anytime that Hot Topic really picks up a design and just runs with it, you know that's not good. Like that's going to be the most annoying thing you've seen all your fucking life. So so many people feel that way, but it is just such a fun episode. It's so fun. I rewatched it last night, had a great time. The part where he bites his own lip to like let the brine drip out to attract the sewer rats. I was like, oh, genius. So genius. I love it.
Yeah, it's very, very much a like Rick is God and can do anything episode. And it's stupid. Right. Like it's so stupid, but like fun, well animated action sequences. Like it's really
oh my God. The rats, he's beating the hell out of those rats, and it's animated so well. Like it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
It really is. And
it's
when
wild.
he's I think he's like trying to get on the elevator and he yells parkour, I got so hyped. Like, like the dickhead in me like popped out. Like I was like, yeah, parkour, let's do it. Come on, let's go.
Go.
This episode also has 3 of my favorite guest stars the show has ever had, and it's so like the therapist is Susan Sarandon. The Jaguar is Danny Trejo, and you guys might not know this guy, but the guy who owns that facility, who like Rick is fighting the whole time, is played by one of my favorite comedic actors of all time, a guy named Peter Serafinowicz, who is like genuinely the funniest man that people don't know about. He's
What's he in?
Incredibly funny. He was in like the thing people would know him from is like he's in Shaun of the Dead. He's like the roommate who gets really annoyed with them in Shaun of the Dead. He is he's in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. He's the guy in the trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy 1 who says, "What an asshole." Like that's what he was. That was the big beat in that trailer. He's like the weapons specialist in John Wick 2 for some reason. He's in the movie Spy. He stars as the Tick in Amazon's The Tick. And he does a lot of voice acting. Actually, the weirdest thing that people would know him from is that he is, for all of the 2 lines that he is the voice of Darth Maul in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, which is in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, which is bizarre.
Wait, really?
But he only has a couple lines, but he is the voice in that. And he has a great voice. And I know him because there's a show, he did a sketch comedy show called the Peter Serafinowicz Show. He's British, so like it was a short-lived British sketch comedy show, and it is one of my favorite sketch comedy shows of all time. Some of my favorite sketches ever written are on that show. And he's just great. He's just so funny. He's been in a lot of alt comedy stuff, and he does a lot of voice acting. But love Peter Serafinowicz. So there's another Peter Serafinowicz tangent. But so I think this episode, though, besides, like, most of it is just fun. Like, it's just fun action, wild fun action, which is like, not very deep, but very fun to watch. Like a really good time. And then like at the end they like flip it on you and they're like, all right, let's really dissect. Let's get serious and dissect Rick a little bit. And I really like the sequence where like the therapist just dresses down Rick and it's just like I get it, Rick. Like, you don't want to do therapy because that's work and work sucks. Like, you don't want to do it. You're a super genius. Of course you don't like doing that. That doesn't, I get it. But I think the real spin on it is just that both Beth and Rick completely ignore everything she said, even though she's spot on.
It does a nice job articulating how much Beth is like her father. You know what I mean? Like it does a really good job at showing that. And even like what you were saying about the sequence where like the therapist is talking to Rick, I think so this episode got me thinking about when other shows do the therapy one, right? Where they use a therapist to say something about the character. But I think what's different here and what's different in other examples is like this one like is really, really overt about it. Like she's literally saying something about him. Whereas you look at something like Helga on the Couch from Hey Arnold or the Stewie one, the Send in Stewie Please. Oh, yeah. And like those like what happens in those episodes is like more so what happens in therapy. Like the therapist walks you through so you end up saying something about yourself. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of how the episode's put together. Like they obviously couldn't, this thing would be an hour long if they were to do that. You know what I mean? To get Rick talking and stuff like that. I
also think that like, I don't know if they ever could. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if what could they get? Could they get Rick to like Rick? I don't think Rick would ever go along with it enough to like to actually go through that process of like therapy. You know what I mean? And like and getting to that point where he says something about himself. And so I do think it's interesting how the therapist basically gleaned all this simply from speaking to Morty, Summer, and Beth about how they talk about Rick. Like the ways that they discuss Rick. So she's like dissected this whole family and figured out Rick just from their relationships, how they convey their relationships about Rick. And then Rick comes in, she gets a little bit of information about Rick, and then she's just like, here's the deal. Like, here's what I know about you. But I do think the thing that it says most about it is that bit at the end where both Rick and Beth are just like, well, that was a waste of time. And
let's go to Shoney's.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you said, it shows how like Beth is like Rick, and also how they enable each other in a lot of ways. Like Beth is very enabling of Rick and like allows him to do all this wild shit with Morty and like be a part of their lives. And now Rick
and the syringe and everything. Yeah,
right, exactly. And now Rick is like is almost undermining Beth's ability to grow, because he's basically going along with her by being like, well, that was a waste of time, even though it clearly could have been beneficial to Beth. Yeah, that should have been beneficial to Beth moving forward.
And something that I just thought was really interesting and I guess possibly a little bit inside baseball, if you're a child of divorce. I don't know what status is with y'all's parents. Mine were very, very divorced. And I just remember going to therapy too when I was a kid. And it was like a family therapy situation where they would like make my mom go with me. And my mom so badly wanted it to be my dad's problem and my problem. You know, like she did not want to admit that she was part of the problem whatsoever. And so whenever she would bring me to therapy, it would be like, okay, well, that asshole messed her up. How are you going to fix her? And the therapist would be like, Susan, maybe you're the problem. And she would be like, absolutely. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, my kid is doing all this fucking bullshit and you're telling me that I'm the problem? And it's like, yeah, that's how parenting works. It's almost like when you have a 10-year-old, that's how it works out. So I thought that was a really, it was really cool to see that, because anytime you feel seen after having like a really shitty life, it feels good. But also I really liked that kind of like showing of what Beth's emotions are like, and the kind of mother that she is, the kind of person that she is, and how whenever her kids are behaving badly in school, Summer was fucking like huffing glue or whatever, huffing like, oh no, it was ceramics. Yeah. It was in her ceramic class.
Enamel.
She was like huffing
ceramic
like
enamel or something like
ceramic
that.
enamel. Yeah. She's like huffing, and Morty was like pissing his pants in class, and you know, she's just like, well, this isn't my problem. This is my fucked up kids and my shitty fucking husband. I'm just driving them to therapy.
Right.
You know? and I just I love that she and Rick
she's refusing to admit. Yeah, it's like, and it's also interesting because like the whole time Beth is being so stubborn about not admitting that her father is doing these things that are harmful to their family. But at the same time, you know that she subconsciously doesn't believe that, because she took the syringe. She prevented him from being able to get out of that situation. Mm-hmm. So you know that she knows, but also she's completely incapable of admitting it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's some really interesting character reveals, like they really peel back some layers, especially with Beth in this episode.
I think there's a little bit of DNA of that Unity episode in this one too, where like Unity says that thing about how Rick just can't change, which is like a double entendre. It means two things. It means like physically, and it kind of also means like mentally, emotionally, or whatever.
Yeah.
And you see that here. You definitely see that here. And you see how it translated to Beth. You kind of see how it translated to Beth throughout the whole season, honestly.
Right. Oh, this whole season is like pretty much, I think that Beth is like, I mean, I know obviously she's a main character, sort of, so of course she's a focal point, but I think that Beth is like especially a focal point of season 3.
I agree. They do so much in terms of her character development in this season, especially through the divorce and just through her relationship with Rick. And to me, it's one of the strengths of the season. I really like that. Like previously, Beth was I liked Beth as a character and you know what she meant to our other main characters, but I kind of like that this really explores herself a lot more than some of the previous seasons have.
Like, this is the first time in this series, in my opinion, that she is becoming like more of a focal, like her depth outshines Gary's Jerry's stupidity. You know what I mean? Like usually he's so fucking dumb that it just like outshines anything that she might do. Like because the focal point is always how stupid fucking Jerry is. Like this,
they allow her to be more than mother, daughter, wife now. You know what I mean? Like this is more like, who is she? Like
like
not
who is
just
Beth actually?
Yeah, like not just like, oh, my husband annoys me, or like, oh, I love my dad, but like, well, why? Why do you think this? Why do you feel like this? That's what this season's more doing, and I appreciate it. I think it's really good. I think it's dope.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, like this episode also
Cartoons that agree.
Cartoons that agree.
Yeah.
This episode also won the Emmy. Like this was the Emmy winner. They're Rick and Morty's first Emmy win.
This won an Emmy?
This won an Emmy.
Oh my god, I can't believe that Susan Sarandon won an Emmy for talking about eating food. That's amazing.
This was definitely not my favorite of the season, but and you know, like, but I think this show, I mean, the funny thing is looking back, like I wish the show had won an Emmy for season 2. Like season 2 is so good, and like I feel like that's where it really deserved. Like that was, to me, season 2 is my favorite season, and like I think that's where it deserved its Emmy nod. But you know, I like that this show, I like that it got, I don't know, there's just other episodes of this season that I kind of wish had gotten an Emmy over this one. Mm-hmm. But the writer, Jessica Gao, she is now like she's show running the She-Hulk show for Marvel. So there's a lot of, weirdly, Marvel is siphoning off a ton of Rick and Morty writers. I don't know if you've noticed that.
That might be about something, man. That might mean something.
Really?
Yeah. Damn. There's a lot of them who wrote on Rick and Morty and have written, I think there's one of the guys who wrote Loki and Doctor Strange 2, which are both coming up, was a writer on Rick and Morty. Jeff Loveness, who wrote a lot of season 4 and 5, is writing Ant-Man 3. And Jessica Gao is doing She-Hulk. Like they pretty much just went to the writer's room and was like, which of you wants to write Marvel? Who wants to get paid?
Who wants to get paid?
All right, well, let's move on. Unless you guys have anything else, let's move on to 304. You guys want to move on?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah, man, we have talked, there's so much to talk about with this season. We're like, I mean, to be fair, we went on a Paddington tangent, but we're like an hour deep and we've talked about 3 episodes. So that's
pretty bad, y'all.
No, I think it's good. It means there's a lot to say. So 304, Vindicators 3, The Return of Worldender. This is like the Rick and Morty superhero parody adventure. I've heard that this is an episode that Dan Harmon doesn't like.
This is one of my least favorite overall episodes of Rick and Morty total.
I think I agree.
It's just not my fave. It's fine. It's not bad.
I think it's fine.
I think it has some really, really smart ideas in it. And I I feel like it doesn't add up to the sum of its parts. Like it has so many parts that I like, but I still just don't love the episode. Like I think the team, the Vindicators themselves are really funny. Like I love the different hero, like the different heroes they created. The guy who's made out of ants is really funny. Like the ghost train guy, love the ghost train guy. Ghost trains are so funny to me.
But that's my thing about these is that like, I think those are like hilarious, like just in general, just concepts, right? Like just Ghost Train. Right. I wrote down how funny of a concept I thought Ghost Train was. But I think the heroes themselves are boring. I think that's what does it.
Maybe you're right.
To this one for me.
Boring.
Like
you're right.
I
think that's kind of where I'm at. I think they don't have as much personality as you'd like them to, even though their concepts are really cool and really interesting. Right. I do like the premise of Rick getting blackout drunk and like creating a saw trap though. Like that premise is really funny. That's a really funny idea. But again, it's just like the execution doesn't feel that exciting or engaging to me.
Yeah, and even then I like the love triangle thing they do and try to make it, they like make it really, they even get kind of stupid, but not really because they play it straight. But like with like the 3 heroes closer to the end of the episode, like I like that stuff too. Like I was like, okay, This is fine. Like I enjoy. seeing this. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's for some reason, some of the parts isn't directly clicking.
Yeah, and it's like there are moments I like. Like I really like the whole. I like Morty cleaning up Rick's mess and just being like, God, I guess I have to do this bullshit again. Like I'm gonna disarm this photon bomb or whatever. And he's like, how do you know how to do that? He's like, I've had to do this a lot, Rick. Like you fuck up a lot.
Yeah.
Like, and it really starts to reveal more about that like dynamic and how that's evolving and how like obviously it's well established that we don't see all of Rick and Morty's adventures, especially in this episode, because this is Vindicators 3 and they allegedly had already gone on at least one of the Vindicators adventures prior to this. But yeah, I think I like the way that it continues to move Rick and Morty's relationship forward. Like Morty is still down to go on adventures and still wants to do all this stuff with Rick, but he's also getting fed up with a lot of the bullshit that he has to deal with in this relationship and these adventures. Yeah, as
someone who blacks out when they drink, I felt like, ooh, no, this is what I'm like to people. Like that's how I feel. That's what I feel like Brett goes through every morning after I drink, where he just has to solve like a saw trap that I set up the night before, and like neither of us remember. And like I did, like that was just like that episode was just like watching me and Brett, but Brett is dismantling the neutrino bomb, and he's just like, yeah, I've dismantled 73 of these, Whitney. Like.
That's really funny. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like other than that, I don't have much to say about it other than I love the idea of ghost trains. I think the ghost train guy is hilarious. Like I think that
I'm
idea
really happy that you
really
like
funny.
that, John.
Thanks, ghost trains.
You're welcome.
So the fake out ending, the whole time they think it might be about Morty, and then Morty it builds up and like Morty's about to fucking cry, and then you find out that it's not. And for some reason, not even for some reason, I feel like it would have landed or maybe been funnier if the show was more known for sincere moments. Like, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, because you're almost kind of expecting. The whole time I was watching it, I wasn't like thinking like, oh, this is so sweet. I was thinking like, this has to be something else. Like, there's no way in hell. Like, because the show kind of makes you expect that.
This is the first season where I feel like that is kind of becomes a problem, where you're always expecting the turn. You're always expecting some twist or turn at the end to pull the rug out from under the audience. So therefore, the previous unpredictability of the show kind of becomes its predictability, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're right. Like it wasn't a surprising twist because we know the characters so well. Like, you know, it was just like, oh yeah, that's right. This makes sense. Yeah.
This is kind of like the beginning for me of when it starts to almost feel like a little bit grating how much of an asshole Rick is. Because it gets to a point in season 4, which obviously we're not discussing today, but it gets to a point for me eventually in season 4 where like it's just, well, yeah, he's a fucking asshole, and it gets to that like realistic territory eventually where it's like, no, realistically, this person is an alcoholic and this person is a narcissist and a fucking piece of shit, and they're completely emotionally and morally bankrupt, and he doesn't give a fuck, and he's just constantly causing problems for everyone around him, and he does not fucking care about anyone but himself. And eventually that does get like really jarring and grating after a while, I think, for me at least. But that's part of like the point, and that's part of like the charm of who Rick is. The charm is that he's incredibly fucking irritating after a while. But I think that this is kind of like the beginning of that decline for me, where it starts to become too much, that when he starts like casually turning his back on Morty, who has up until this point just staunchly supported him through everything. When it does turn out to be Noob, it kind of just feels gross. You're like, dude, I wanted it to be your grandson. Like, I just wanted you to love him. Yeah, like you're like, I just want you to like him, dude. Like, I just want you to basically care about him.
And I do think the show could do with like maybe making Rick face some consequences at some point. You know what I mean? Like it almost felt like they kind of did that in season 2, but he got out of it so easily in season 3. And so like, and that's, you know, I don't want to talk too much about other shows. And I know, Whitney, that you haven't really watched much of the show, but that's one of the things that's super different between this show and BoJack Horseman, which are 2 shows about assholes who don't care about the people around them. Very much both of those shows are about that. And BoJack was very much one that made a very sincere point to deal with consequences for those actions and fallout and accountability. And I know they're very different type of shows, because BoJack is obviously set in a much more realistic world. Even though it's animal people, it's a much more down to earth like tone than Rick and Morty is. But I think they can do that on an elevated Rick and Morty wacky level. You know what I mean? Like, I think you can make him face accountability and consequences in a crazy Rick and Morty sci-fi way. So yeah, I wish they would.
I think that's a good comparison though, because both BoJack and Rick like operate in a way where they both feel like they're indestructible. But the difference is that Rick actually is. Like, there's a world around BoJack that brings him down and constantly tells him, fam, okay, you're not good at this, you're not good at that, you're bad to these people, you're horrible to these people, you can't do this. And that's not to say that the world of Rick and Morty rewards Rick, but it rarely punishes him.
Exactly.
Right.
That's a really good way of putting that.
Yeah, and he is so all powerful that like he doesn't need rewards because he can do whatever he wants at any moment. Right. You know what I mean? Like he can reward himself, you know? So yeah, it's just like, it's someone who's all powerful and has no consequences for the things he does. Although I do think there are some ways, there's an episode in season 4 that I think does a good job really starting to like peel back the layers on Rick in more ways. And I'm hoping that they continue to move forward with that in season 5, which we'll find out in like a month. We're pretty close to season 5 of Rick and Morty.
Here we are.
All right. You guys got any other thoughts on Vindicators 3, or should we move on to the Whirly Durly conspiracy?
Whirly Durly.
Whirly Durly. All right. This is the Jerry adventure. Rick and Jerry adventure.
Rick and Jerry together at last.
I really like, I was shocked to find how much I enjoyed when Rick and Jerry got along. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No,
like,
same. I love it. It's so good.
Nice. It's just a good feeling.
It really is. It's just charming and sweet. And it's like, even though, you know, like they've got their shit that they deal with together, and they've got their qualms with each other. Those moments of them drinking together and just like talking through shit they're nice. They're really sweet. They're a little cathartic.
Yeah. You know what I think it is? I think it's because they combined the two characters that are their most enjoyable when they're happy. Because like I can't stand Jerry any other time, but when he's like not doing anything and he's just like having a good time, he's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
you start to feel bad for him. You're like, oh, Jerry. Oh.
Yeah, like, oh, he's not that bad. And then you find out that he is, and you go, oh, okay, whatever. But, you know, but like for that brief moment, yeah, you know, it's cool.
For sure. And that doesn't last super long because Jerry does a Jerry thing. But it's also like fallout from Rick being Rick. Like Rick has these people after him. Yeah. And also like you also like at this point, even though Jerry's having a good time with Rick, he feels like he has lost his entire life to Rick after this ultimatum that he gave. And so like all of a sudden he's given this magic situation where they're like, we can get rid of Rick and you can help us.
And you can have your life back. Yeah. Like,
and I think that's a really interesting conflict. Because Jerry is this kind of stupid to definitely go along with that and then definitely regret it. And then he's just like, it's pretty fun. Like this isn't one of my favorites of the season, but I think it's a very interesting character building episode for Jerry. And also with the subplot with Beth. I really like the stuff with Beth in this episode.
Oh my God. Yeah. The Beth Summer subplot is bonkers.
Oh,
in
yeah.
this episode.
Yeah. I love, it's again kind of similar to Pickle Rick. It's one that just shows how stubborn Beth can be, and like how
my god,
she's just so unwilling to ask for help. She's like, I can do this, I know what I'm doing.
I'm gonna call the number and I'm gonna read the manual, and it's like, Jesus Christ, just ask your daughter is inside out and she has grown her tits to the size of the garage. You need to help her. Like, get her out of this.
I will say all that Beth stuff leads to what is probably my favorite quote in the entire show, where Morty says to the neighbor, "Mind your own goddamn business, Gene." I love that. It's so funny.
I also like how this episode starts to show how Morty's dynamic is changing with his family because of his adventures with Rick. He is gaining a bigger understanding and a more confident like worldview. And so in this episode, like the whole time, he is the one who's just like, this is what we need to do. And they won't do it. And then also at the very end where he goes to Ethan and just threatens him because he hurt his sister. I love that moment because I'm just like, oh, this is like Morty is really changing. Morty's like, he's becoming a little more Rick-like. He's becoming a little more confident, a little more like, he's coming out of his shell a little more. He's not like the awkward kid anymore. And he just fully threatens Ethan. It's pretty funny. Yeah. My biggest laugh in the episode, though, is when she calls the number and pushes the button, and the people she called are the little things inside, and they all run out. Yeah. It's so funny. Like, freedom! That's so funny. That's such a funny idea. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
My favorite line in that one is when they're driving, and she's like, "Morty, do you have the machine all ready to go? Do you think you can figure it out?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "All right, Mama's coming, honey. Or Mama's coming, honey, and she cares about your titties." That's my favorite fucking line. She cares about your titties.
Oh man, yeah. I almost remember more about that subplot than the Rick and Jerry stuff has some good stuff, but once shit hits the fan in the Jerry subplot, the Jerry and Rick subplot, like I feel like I can take or leave the rest.
Dark as fuck though, because when they turn off the the atomizer that makes everything so that you can't die, and the fucking kid shoots their sibling and just dead, and it's just dark. Like, "Lisa, are you okay?" They're like, "No, you fucking killed her." Yeah, that's awful. That shit fucked me up.
Man, this show does get really dark sometimes. It's so always in a joke. It's always in a joke.
I think
I also sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Johnny.
I was gonna say the other thing that makes me laugh is when they're running back to the Whirly Dirly place on that like big creature, and Jerry's in its mouth and is just getting slapped in the face with the big alien the balls. Yeah, it's really funny. Sorry, what were you gonna say, Tariq?
No, it was something about the way the episode ends. It's another one of those instances where I felt like Jerry just kind of saying, "You know what? No, I'm not gonna go inside because they'll feel sorry for me, and that's not how I'm moving anymore." And he just kind of walks away, and Rick does that really cathartic like smile and nod, and it's a really, really great moment. But then he's like, "Oh, but my bus pass!" Like it's like, no, keep it. Like, don't do that.
Yeah. They always pull the rug out. Yeah, but it's very Jerry. It's very Jerry for him to be like, "Oh wait, I kind of need help to get home." It's very Jerry. All right, you guys got anything else about this one, or should we move on? Let's move on. 306, Rest and Ricklaxation. This is the episode where the opening is great. This is the one where Rick and Morty go to a spa and detoxify themselves. And the opening is just them going on the most insane, out of control adventure you can imagine. And then,
oh my God.
And then just not knowing how to cope with it. I love when they get back into the car after that and just start screaming and crying,
and
like
sobbing.
Yeah.
And just Rick being like, "I was not in control of that situation at all," and Morty being like, "Oh my God."
I love that opening so much because it feels like how they should be responding to some of these things.
To every adventure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I really like that they actually address that in like a fun, meaningful way. I also remember when I watched this episode the first time when it aired, I specifically remember the first time watching it not liking this very much. Just the whole concept of like the toxic Rick and the toxic Morty and the overly positive versions of them. On rewatch, I really fucking love this episode. Like this episode, I think has a lot to say and is really interesting. Because
it's crazy
in a
that
way,
Morty just
when they
morphs
separate,
into a tiny American psycho. Like what? Like
it's pretty good.
Who knew that was his like positive personality?
But I think that's really smart because it says a lot about even though we're in this episode, it's considered like the toxic versions of them have been removed. Like the toxic traits of them have been removed. I think both versions are toxic. And one is like toxic negativity and one is toxic positivity. And like to the point where Morty is just like, everything's great. Don't care. Everything's okay. Like he doesn't even have a conscience. He doesn't even have anything that holds him back from, second guessing anything in his life.
He's lost it when he doesn't even care about Jessica anymore. Because it's like Jessica's the thing that always like grounds him to his humanity, even across all of these like dimensions and timelines and everything. Like Jessica's kind of like his constant always, and this is the first time we've ever seen him lose that constant due to an adventure mishap, and that's really interesting that's part of it to me.
Agreed. And like it's funny to see how like Rick loses a lot of what makes him like a lot of what makes our Rick unique is in the toxic part of him. It's like the part of him that cares.
He is the Rick because he's quote unquote the Rickest Rick, right? And then Morty is the Mortiest Morty. So the Rickest Rick, it's interesting that part of being the Rickest Rick is caring and is loving your grandson and is having those feelings, because the toxic version of himself is the version of himself that won't let Morty die. And the toxic positivity version of himself is the one that doesn't give a shit about his grandson.
Exactly.
And I think that's very interesting.
I do too. And it's also interesting to see what the toxic aspects of Morty are, which are just like the like deep insecurity, like the deep insecurity and fear. And he's just like, where he's just kind of like he has no confidence in himself. He can't stand up for himself. He is just like, he can't function in that state, but those are the things that keep Morty from being a psychopath. I loved this episode. I was like, I remember it's so funny how I watched it the first time and was like, I just didn't get it, didn't like it. And this time I'm watching it and I'm like, this is a great episode, like kind of important commentary on toxicity and positivity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that it is really cool how, like, in the end of the episode, after all is kind of like said and done and whatnot, they do really hammer home that point that there's no such thing as purely negative or purely positive, because even negativity has positivities in it, and you do still need both. You can't just have one or the other. You do have to really have that mix, because there's negative and positive qualities of both negativity and positivity themselves, which is
it's the yin yang situation. It's totally yin yang situation. Yeah, it's like you got the yin yang, you got the darkness and the light, but there's light in the darkness and there's darkness in the light. Like it can't exist without the other. You know,
gotta have Yoda and you gotta have Vader, and you can't have just one.
Right. Oh man, Tariq, you got any other thoughts about Rest and Ricklaxation?
I really, really like this one, man. I like this one a lot. I love calm Rick and Morty. Like, I love, like, Rick being just kind of like, he's kind of just like a dude at this point, right? Like, and I like that. Like, you know what I mean? Just really polite. Like, I really enjoy that. Morty, like, fam, the way he's, like, talking to women, Morty got game. Like, I was crying. Like, I'm like, he's so annoying.
Oh, for fucking real. No, he won't shut the fuck up, but also, like, I kind of picture, like, that's probably what it's like to be on a date with me, where I'm just talking the whole fucking time, and I'm just like, what do you know? What do you see? Would you like the crudité, the crudite? I don't give a shit how you pronounce it. Tell me. Like, I'm sure that's what it's like dating me, so.
It's so
it was
funny.
Also, like, kind of when they're their positive selves, it feels like Rick or like Morty kind of overpowers Rick. Like positive Morty kind of overpowers positive Rick.
He
does.
Yeah, it's
That's
wild.
what is so crazy.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's a cool. This is a cool way to reveal things about your characters, to remove traits from them, to only leave certain traits, and to explore how those traits negatively affect them is really interesting. It's a cool sci-fi premise that actually reveals a lot about our characters. Really good episode.
I do have a couple just miscellaneous things about the episode. I wrote down that this one is like just Rick and Morty's version of remember that like band Dexter's Lab where they like split the characters in half and they're like cursing and shit? It's kind of just that, but it's like the Rick and Morty version.
Right, that's true.
The soap opera comes back and she says, "You do know me," and Summer's like, it's really funny. I did find it funny that Rick calls Jessica crying.
Every night because he misses Morty so much, and he's just calling.
So and that's so revealing because and they even specifically address like Jessica was like asking him like if he got a new Morty. Like she even knows the like there's lots of Ricks and Mortys out there. Like
there's
just
lots
get a new
of
Morty. But Rick needs this Morty. Like Rick needs this Morty. And that is really
this is the Mortiest Morty.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's the thing is like, I mean, I think there's also obviously in the next episode, we'll talk about another Morty who's particularly unique, but it is like, it says a lot about how important our versions of Rick and Morty are and how different they are than the other versions in this multiverse of madness. Maybe that's a good lead-in. Do you have more?
I got the final quote. It's really fucking dumb. Like, it's a nice moment. And I was like, I know in my head, I'm like, they're not going to leave this nice moment, right? Where like, Jessica's like, it's good to have you back and everything like that. Her friend just says, you ever been peed on before? Yum. What the hell is that?
I love how just fucking disgusting and dirty all of the girls at this high school are, because then we have Tammy fucking just being like, I just like, have you ever tried bukkake? Like, I kind of want to, like, that's like, this is just how all the girls at this high school talk. Like, Jesus Christ.
That's wild, man. That's wild. But definitely got me a laugh. It got me a shock laugh at the end of the episode.
It did. So. It got me too. I was like, oh, this is gross.
Teen girls are way grosser than teen boys, and I will stand by that fact forever.
Stamping it.
All right, well, let's move on to 307, which has two titles. The official title is the Ricklantis Mixup, but that is a fake title. The real title is Tales from the Citadel. Yeah, it really was. Like the episode description was that they were going to Atlantis. The promo for this episode was that they were going to Atlantis. And then they pull out the rugs and are like, nope, this is a Citadel episode. So this is the episode where we follow a bunch of Ricks and Mortys who live on the Citadel of Ricks in the aftermath of Rick's complete upending of that entire society. And I fucking love this episode so much. It's so cool because it expands the sci-fi lore of this show in only a way that Rick and Morty can. Like, obviously Rick and Morty has so many cool sci-fi ideas, but the thing that really makes it stand out is this like multiversal Rick situation where we've got this whole society of Ricks and Mortys. And I think it was such a smart way to learn more about that society and also learn more about like Ricks and Mortys in general and what sort of makes ours different than all these other Ricks and Mortys. And also I love how it deals with the aftermath of the premiere in such a like smart way. Like, oh, the Citadel of Ricks, like the council is dead. They have to completely change their society now. They have to hold an election. They have to like figure out how this is going to operate now that they're not being ruled by this like council. Whitney, what do you think about this one?
I love this episode very much. I think that it's definitely one of like the most like important episodes in terms of like moving the storyline along, because obviously this episode sets up so much of season 4 and just so much going forward in general. But I love the evil Morty like plot line of all this. This is definitely something that is I'm like the most interested in about this show. This plot line has me completely fucking hooked. I want more episodes of this. Like, this is, you know, kind of like where it really starts to get good. And I can't wait to see more Evil Morty episodes in the future, because this shit's my jam. I fucking love this episode. It's so good.
Agreed. Tariq, how do you feel about Tales from the Citadel?
I'm not as high as you guys, but I do really like this one. I do think this one is really
Damn
cool.
it, Tariq! Get on our level.
It is my fault. It's my fault.
Don't worry. I remember.
This one taught me something about the show.
Fucking vibe check, Tariq. Come on.
Are you gonna do the Ed thing where you just fucking?
Yeah, I'm gonna Paddington to you about this episode.
We're gonna Paddington to you about this episode until you love it.
Oh my god.
No, I got a lot to say about it. We'll see though.
It taught me. It taught me something about the show that I didn't realize, because I remember when this came out, and also doing this, I didn't know that I saw every episode of Rick and Morty, but I guess I have. But I remember when this came out, and I remember being annoyed by it because I really liked, I liked and wanted to see more of the divorce stuff. Like, that's what I thought. I was like, well, wait, you're just leaving it? Like, wait, what's happened? Like, what's going on? Like, how do these characters feel? Like, I know we just talked about it for a little bit, but I remember being upset about it. However, watching it in order like this, I don't care. Like, it doesn't, I don't have that same emotion. But
there's so much divorce in all the other episodes. It's fine.
Right. Like, I don't care now. You know what I mean? But I think,
absolutely.
I think that might come from the fact that, like, the show airs weekly, like a show should. And that might be just like me, like, okay, so what are they going to do this time? And then they just kind of do this, and it kind of threw me off for a little bit. But that's why I think we talked about in the first season, and kind of the second, not as much, but especially in the first season, we talked about, like, yeah, no, you can't binge this show. Like, it's impossible. You can't watch this. Like, you just got to step back sometime. But I feel like this might be the easiest season to binge, and this episode taught me that.
I did have an easy time binging it.
It's really funny that you say that, because I really was listening to y'all's episode, because you just dropped it today, and I was listening to it in the shower before I came on the show. And I was like hearing you guys say that, where you guys were like, yeah, this is definitely like a week-to-week thing. Like, I would prefer if we were doing this week-to-week, whatever. And I just thought that was so funny, because I binge watched it all yesterday before like coming to talk to you guys. And I had the best time binge watching season 3 of Rick and Morty. It's so fun.
The season's great like great. That. Like, it's really great.
This is a great season for that.
1000%. And
so I was coming in here ready to fight you guys if you said the same thing. I was gonna be like, you guys just need to fucking hole up, get it, light a joint, lay down, and you'll be fine. just watch season 3.
This is how you know. Actually, this is how I know that, like, this is the best season to binge, because I watched the first half with a hangover, and I was fine. I was like, all right, yeah, let's keep going. Like, I was completely cool with that. Yeah, this episode showed me that, because it's like, wow, like, week to week, I was frustrated because I just wanted more character development-y things, but in order like this, split through a couple days, it's like, nah, cool. Like, it's okay. We could go here, and we could figure out what's going over here and everything like that. And I think it's really enjoyable. And this episode has actually my biggest laugh. I know the Gene thing is my favorite line, but this is my biggest laugh in the entire show, where they come to Rick and Morty, and they're trying to get them to sign the petition and donate and stuff like that. And they're obviously not going for it. And he says, it's like you're pitching the policeman's ball to a black teenager. I had to pause the episode. He erupted. Like, I had to pause the episode. I was like, no way. It's really good.
Oh man. All right. Let me go on. Let me rant about how much I love this episode for a minute.
Tell us, Johnny.
One of the things I love about this episode is what it reveals about, like, the concept of Ricks, like this concept of the Citadel of Ricks and the Ricks in general. So like Rick is allegedly the most unique and the smartest person in the multiverse. Like this is well established. Everyone believes this. Like everyone who is in the know believes this. But when the Ricks join the Citadel, they're basically putting themselves in a situation where they become like a small cog in a bigger machine. They are creating this, like they could be in any other society and be the height of that society, but they're all joining forces, and therefore, despite the fact that they all have the same IQ and they all theoretically can and should be able to do the same things, they have to form a society out of Ricks and Mortys. And so I think it's really interesting. And I think it brings into question, like, how and why were they able to accomplish this? And I think that they actually maybe hint at how in the first episode of the season, because even though it's theoretically that memory that Rick had, even if it was all fabricated, I think that the thing that is maybe realistic about it is what happened with the other Rick who comes to him and says, hey, you're about to invent a portal gun. Come join forces with all the Ricks. So to me, what this is saying is that what some of these Ricks have done, who invented portal guns and teamed up with the other Ricks, is they are going to the other Ricks before they invent their portal guns and enlisting them into this Rick army before they have fully realized their own potential. You know what I mean?
Oh shit. Yeah.
So like if a Rick hasn't invented the portal gun yet and hasn't explored the multiverse yet and doesn't really understand the full breadth of it, that's going to be an easier person for them to be like, hey, come be a part of our thing. And I think that's a really interesting commentary on, I mean, it could be there's a lot of things that could be parallel to in the real world, but I think that's a really interesting aspect of this Rick society, is that in order for it to function, like some Ricks have to exploit other Ricks. Like that is what it's all about. And it's really messed up. Like it's crazy. And it's like, and it's funny because obviously we look at it as the society of Ricks and Mortys, but that obviously then reflects on society as we know it. Like that's the case in the world. Like there's exploitation of people everywhere.
And especially exploitation of people of equal intelligence.
Right.
Absolutely. Just constantly everywhere.
Yeah. And so I also really like seeing the social dynamics between the Ricks and the Mortys, like what, like the things that they kind of say about, you know, finding your place in the society, in the society, what it means to be a Rick, how we've got the story of these 4 unique Mortys who all have something different about them than most Mortys, right? Like one's the Blizzard Morty, one has the drama implant, one is he's just got the glasses, and one's a little tubby, and they're all like, they all feel others. They feel like others because they are not the same as all these other Mortys. And I really love their story. I really like their story and their adventure, and just how they like dream of being able to be themselves, you know, like being able to fit in properly, to the point where one of them is just like, I'm not doing this anymore. And he jumps in that wishing portal, which is pretty sad.
Just a trash can.
Yeah.
But I do think that it is interesting that, like, at the core of all of this, because I feel like I've been so repetitive saying this, but it just is the word. But like the Rickest Rick and the Mortiest Morty, right? Like that whole concept. And it is so interesting that there's almost like this biological imperative inside each Rick and inside each Morty, where even when they do have these differences, it's like there's like this homing beacon that they know that they're supposed to be this ideal Rick and this ideal Morty, but they're not. And I think that that's something that's really interesting about this episode, is showing all of the quote unquote like defect or reject Mortys, and then like the, you know, like simple Rick and the Ricks that are lesser than. It's just a really interesting concept. The way that they show this is fucking top notch. Into it.
Agreed. And then like how you can like the whole story with the Rick and Morty cops was really interesting, with like how that Morty had become so like jaded with their society and like but
that's because that is a more Rick Morty. And so that's a Morty that is more on the end of the spectrum of the Rickest Morty, who's evil Morty, President Morty. So it's also interesting to see that because it's so like just like the scale of it and where everybody fits. So like that cop is going to be on this end of the spectrum, but then there was the Rick cop, and the Rick cop was clearly more on the Morty end of the spectrum because he was like willing to play by the rules and do things by the book. And it's like Ricks don't do things by the book. Your Morty's more of a badass than you are. That's crazy. Your Morty's like doing deals with the mobs, and you're the one who's like, you know, coming clean about killing him and all that shit. So I just my goosebumps line from this episode is same old story. Morty's killing Mortys. It's so good. It's so good.
Morty's killing Mortys. I also got one of my biggest laughs in the episode from Cop Morty, and it's when he's talking to the two Mortys who are doing graffiti, and he's basically trying to talk their lingo, and he's doing the whole "aw geez" thing, like "aw geez." And then when he gets really mad about it, and he's just like, and he finishes a sentence and just goes "aw geez."
Aw geez.
Really good. I like that.
So funny. So funny. Yeah. It's I think it's a really special and unique episode that like this is I think the reason I love this is not something you could see from any other show, anything else. Like there is nothing that could do something like this. And I also was really invested, and first of all, it really got me with the twist that was evil Morty. And I was really invested in President Morty's bid to become president. Like I really liked his speech. I thought his speech was really great, like about how the problem with the Citadel is that like there are people who want us to be divided and people who don't, and there's more of us who don't want to be divided than do, you know. And and I genuinely felt like the swell when he wins over all those people in the debate, and you see all the Ricks cheering for him. I'm like, yeah.
And he kisses the baby Rick.
Yeah.
The little baby one.
I really liked that. And then I just think the ending of the episode is like the most perfectly haunting thing when he makes that turn and you see that, there's even when there was this council of Ricks, there is this upper tier, upper class of Ricks who control everything. There's the Ricks who are at the height of all of their industries within the Citadel of Ricks, and they're just like, okay, well, we're gonna keep everything the same way, right, Morty? And he just fucking kills all of them.
All of them. Yeah.
And honestly, I watched this episode. I actually watched this episode twice. I watched it last night, and then today before we recorded, I was like, I love that episode so much, I want to watch it again and take notes. But cool. Every time I watch this episode, the music cue kick in once they airlock everyone out. The moment it kicks in, goosebumps. Like it's
really good.
It's same.
So good.
It's really good.
So good.
And just him like beating on the window. And I just remember the first time I watched this, I have never fucking hit pause and then just zoomed in so fast to see what the fuck was on the papers, you know?
Yeah.
Because like it just freezes, and then you have like 1 second. You have 1 second to hit pause before everything gets sucked out and you can't see it anymore. But then obviously you zoom and you see a little eye patch Morty, and you're just
But I also think the smartest thing about the way they revealed that was not only that they did that visual, they did the visual confirmation that it was the eye patch Morty, but it's just the same music cue from the last Evil Morty episode.
Yeah.
So for me, even though I definitely paused and zoomed in to make sure, the moment that song kicked in, my fucking brain exploded. I was like,
it's meant to provoke the same emotion.
It's knowing, but then wanting to just see what the Easter egg on the screen is.
Totally. I love it. I can't, and honestly, my hope is, I don't know if I think this will happen, but my hope is that this continues to be a long game story. I want more episodes about it, but
this is exactly what I want.
I don't want the next one to wrap up this story though. Like I want to learn.
I want it to keep happening.
I really hope that the next one, I want to see how the Citadel has changed under President Morty. I'm really eager to see like how has their society changed, what is different, and you start to see it a little bit at the end. Like they get all these new badges. Like the cop who killed the Morty is like still out in the thing. You actually see that the three Mortys from the like from the For Morty story where they go to the wishing portal, there's like a quick shot where they're like collecting mega seeds. And so like they've got a job. They're not like, they don't belong to it. Seemingly they don't belong to a Rick now. Like it seems like Mortys now don't have to belong to a Rick. They're finding new places in the society. And I'm really curious, like, what is Evil Morty's game? Like, what is he doing? And like, are any of these things, it's going to be interesting to see if any of his changes, even though we know he's Evil Morty, are any of his changes positive, and will any of them like outlast his reign? Like, is he going to be a villain whose cause we empathize with? I'm really curious to see. I think so too. I'm really curious.
That's where I'm leaning for sure. That's what I want anyways.
Same. You guys got any other thoughts about Tales from the Citadel?
Nah, man, it's just so good. I just love it.
It's a cool episode. All right, well, let's move on to Morty's Mind Blowers. Morty's Mind Blowers.
Spoiler alert. This is my favorite episode of the entire
choice.
Season.
I love Morty's Mind Blowers.
I'm definitely putting this in my number one slot when we rank them later. I'm obsessed with Morty's Mind Blowers, and here's the story of last night. So last night I was watching Morty's Mind Blowers with my boyfriend Brett, and a fun fact about Brett is that Brett does not smoke a lot of weed. He's kind of a little baby stoner, and so I'm the person who got him smoking weed. Like, he had never smoked weed before he met me. And so I realized last night while we were watching Rick and Morty season 3 that the last time I watched Rick and Morty season 3 with Brett was so fucked up he doesn't know what happens in Rick and Morty season 3. So watching Morty's Mind Blowers with him was Brett's Mind Blowers, because Brett had never seen this episode.
That's really
and
funny.
So I was just like, holy shit. So it was literally like Morty's Mind Blowersception, where I was experiencing real life Brett's Mind Blowers about Morty's Mind Blowers itself while watching Morty's Mind Blowers.
That's
and blowing
really
minds.
Right.
It was incredible. I had the best time last night. I laughed through the entire thing. The entire episode makes me laugh so fucking hard. Every single scene. Where do you want to start? Just at where do you guys start talking, because I'm obsessed with all of it.
I mean,
I just want to hear you.
Let's talk about the, like, I guess we should just first talk about the setup and how they frame it. Because there's a few things I want to talk about just based on the last couple episodes we talked about. Right, which, like, I like that they just flat out say it, and I'm glad that they did it, because Interdimensional Cable 2 was, I think, a letdown for me. After Interdimensional Cable 1 is, like, genuinely one of my favorite Rick and Morty episodes.
Yeah. It's a perfect episode.
It's so good. And so, to me, I was so glad they found a new way to do fun, quick, like, Rick and Morty bits that they can write. But also, the other interesting thing is that last season, when we were talking about season 2, I mentioned that Total Recall, to me, felt like an episode that was riffing on a clip show. And I still think it is. But this one specifically calls itself out as being that. It specifically calls itself out. It's being like, it's a clip show of new clips, you know, like Rick says
you never saw.
Yeah, exactly. And I still think they both do that. They both do their own riffs on it. But I love the concept. I love that it shows how many, I mean, we already have an idea of this, but it shows how many things that we don't see from Rick and Morty's adventures. There are so many that we don't know about.
And just the definition of what blows Morty's mind. Like, what different levels of things blow Morty's mind so hard that he has to have them removed entirely from his memory, or else, because, like, the way that Rick phrases it, or else he'll go insane. Like, seriously, it's just the fact that he can't get over the fact that it destroyed him. It destroyed his life, that he thought that there was a man on the moon.
I love that.
The moonspiracy.
And it was a smudge. It was a smudge on the lens somewhere. It's so stupid, but it's so funny.
It's so good.
I remember the first time I watched this, it was definitely one of my favorites of the season, but the only issue I had was I felt like that first one took so long that I was like, wait, what is this episode? And then, like, But this time when we're rewatching it, the pacing felt better. I don't know why the pacing felt better this time than it did last time, but I loved watching it this time. It felt like that first one gave the exact idea of why Morty might want to remove these memories, and then the rest were just fun. All right, let's go over our favorite mind-blowing memories. Do you guys have a favorite one out of all of these?
Ooh, I don't think so.
Man.
I got one. That's my favorite.
How do you even like fucking pick one? I mean, obviously, I just really like the one where Rick mind blew Morty because Rick accidentally says, "Take it for granted."
Oh, that's so funny.
Take it for granted.
That's really funny.
It's so good.
And Morty's like, dude, no, it's take it for granted. Why don't you know this? And so he fucking Morty mind blows it out of his mind so that he doesn't remember how dumb he was. And so I think that it's interesting when Morty starts realizing the color ranking system, and that the red ones are the ones where Rick clearly fucked up. So I think that was my favorite.
I love any time Morty gets a leg up on Rick, and like that was one of probably my favorite moment of it in the whole show. But also just that's such a character revealing moment that Rick is actually so insecure that he cannot allow Morty to retain the memory of him knowing something
of one time that he knew something that he didn't. Yeah.
I think
so funny.
I think the one I like the most, now that I think about it, because you just brought that one up, it reminds me of my favorite one is like really small. And I think it's only a couple seconds. I just think it's so funny that it got erased when just Morty beats Rick in chess. That's so stupid. It's like, what the
hell? My favorite one is without a doubt when he learns about the squirrels. When he learns,
oh my god,
run the world is my favorite. Not only my favorite concept, but it's just so funny. Like the way he's going around and he's listening to every single animal's thoughts, and then all of a sudden this he hears the squirrels talking about like installing a new regime in some other country, and he's like,
in Argentina. Or
whatever. And then the way they're like, I think that kid can hear us.
We might have a Doolittle situation on our hands. Follow him. Potential Doolittle.
It's so good. That's definitely my favorite mind blower.
Especially because it just starts off so wholesome, because he's just like, Grandpa, I want to listen to what animal thoughts are like. And Rick's just like, this is stupid, Morty. And he's like, shut up, Rick, it's cool. And then he like accidentally eavesdrops on squirrels and they have to move off world. Especially because he's like, because they have to like move universes for that one. Because he's like, God damn it, Morty, this is. Yeah, he's like, we can only move off-world so many times, and this is one of the precious times you never fuck with squirrels.
That's so funny. I think the other thing that I really love about this episode is Summer's small role, where she's just like, are you guys Morty mind-blowing again?
I have to tell you, I almost peed my pants last night. I was laughing so hard we had to fucking pause the show. I was screaming when she walks in on them. And they have guns to their fucking heads. They've just engaged in a suicide pact. Yeah. And they are one moment away from going through with it. And Summer just walks in and goes, holy shit, are you guys doing Morty's mind blowers?
She's like eating a popsicle set. Like, it's so
she's just like, holy shit, are you guys doing Morty's mind blowers?
Scenario 3?
And then, is this scenario 3, Grandpa?
Is this a scenario 3?
And he goes, who are you? And she goes, oh, yikes, it's a scenario 4. And then she goes and she breaks out the little card. And the little card has the instructions on it where it's just like, okay, step 1, shoot them with this dart gun. Step 2, there's a yellow vial for Rick and a blue one for Morty. You're going to upload the Rick vial into the Rick helmet and the Morty vial in the Morty helmet. All right, step 4, you're going to take their bodies and put them on the couch. Turn on interdimensional cable, crack a smelling salt, wake them up, then leave the room.
And they get so mad that they think they fell asleep.
But I love this because, so I was having this conversation with Brett about it because Brett and I are kind of like at odds. So I believe that Summer's behavior in this, to me, says that this has happened before. I believe that she has walked in on Morty's mind blowers like 700 times before, and that's why she's like, oh, you guys doing this again? Oh, the guns are out? Oh, the suicide pact just got written? Oh, we're doing this again? Okay, what's up, guys? But Brett was saying he thinks that Rick is just such a genius that he had all of those instruction cards and like the vials and everything all ready to go. And the scenario 3, scenario 4, whatever, Brett thinks that this could have been a first time occurrence and that Rick was just so prepared for it. So what do you guys think?
I think both could be possible, but I think Summer's calmness implies that it's happened before.
Agreed.
Cool. This is just me wanting you guys to settle a fight that I had with my boyfriend last night. So thank you. You're welcome.
That's what podcasts are for.
But that's what I think. I think that a scenario 4 has happened so many fucking times and that she's sick of it.
I think Morty's mind blowers has happened, but she was shocked at the scenario 4. So I think
she was shocked that it was a scenario 4. Yeah, exactly.
So 3 might have happened.
3 might have happened.
So the thing that I did just think about, though, that I think is actually maybe holds some weight for this episode is, so in the last episode, Whitney, which you haven't listened to yet because it's not out yet, but we talked about how there are subtle hints in a couple episodes of season 2 that imply that there are a couple episodes that follow a different Rick and Morty than our main Rick and Morty.
Yes.
So this episode very much feels like it could be following a different Rick and Morty, especially with that memory that they said they moved off world from the squirrel thing. Like, do we really think that they moved universes again and aren't C-137? Like, they aren't in universe C-137?
Oh, shit.
So are they in, like, do we really think they've moved on from C-137, or do we think that maybe these are different Ricks and Mortys? Or are they not even caring or thinking about that? Or are they just prioritizing jokes? Who knows?
Well, I think it's possible that with the C-137 situation, I think it's possible that the squirrel incident took place pre-Cronenberg. So maybe that was a different, maybe that was already a different guy.
The only thing that I think doesn't line up with that is that Morty's reaction to the Cronenberg universal move was definitely like, this is the first time this has happened,
no, you're right, that's true.
So I don't know, unless it
so then that is a pretty good reason to think that these are completely different Rick and Mortys in this episode.
And I think that's a luxury that this show has that's pretty cool, because they could, if they wanted, just tell the most batshit insane story that messes up all continuity and just be like, this was not our Rick and Morty. Sorry.
Right.
But ultimately, I also think that they are probably mostly just prioritizing the joke telling and them having to move universes again because of the squirrel thing is a hilarious joke in the context of this show. So my lore centric brain can be like, that means this is different Ricks and Mortys, but also at the end of the day, they might've just been like, this is funny, Right. So, but I'm still going to dissect it. You can't stop me.
As you should.
All right. You guys got any more to say about Morty's mind blowers?
It's my favorite episode. That's all. I just want you guys to know one more time. I've said it 6 times. I don't care. I want you to know
it's a
again.
great one.
This one has that schedule joke. It's like, if you just saw you guys are so behind schedule because you're fighting all the damn time.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. That was that's another very good little Dan Harmon, Justin Roiland.
There's another one that comes in the finale of the season that I love. That we'll talk. It's one of the only notes I wrote for the season finale, but we'll get there in a couple episodes.
I love that one too. I got it in my notes too.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
All right, so 309 is the ABCs of Beth. Rick and Beth go on an adventure to her childhood playworld that he created to rescue her childhood friend, whose father is going to be executed because they think he ate him. Wild premise. This is, if I'm not mistaken, a widely disliked episode by the Rick and Morty fans.
I love this episode. This is a fucking great season finale.
This isn't the season finale. This is the one before it.
ABCs not season finale. Fucking, what am I saying? Penultimate. Penultimate episode is what I meant to say.
I think this is a really interesting episode for Rick and Beth. Just in terms of their their relationship, their father-daughter relationship, and it gives us a lot of insight into what her childhood was like. And it it's really, I think it's really interesting. Tariq, what do you think about this one? It sounds like you like this one.
I like this one. I like, again, we talked about Beth early on and what this season does for her, and like and what it how it kind of like propels her to a three-dimensional character. And this episode is like instrumental in that, you know, like totally. I don't know, I appreciate all of that stuff. And even like, so this episode is part of a 2-part realization that I had between this one and the finale, where Rick literally tells Beth that she is not his daughter. He literally says that, because she's not. Like, if you think about, like, in the first season, like, that's not his daughter. And she's just like, I know infinite time zones or whatever, but like, she doesn't know. She thinks she knows, but she doesn't really know. And I thought that was really interesting. And it plays into something that happens in the next one.
Totally.
But I don't know. And I like the fact that we do not explicitly know what Beth decided to do. They act like they're telling us, but the actions they give us could mean 2 completely different things.
Did you finish season 4, Tariq?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I remember some.
We won't talk about it.
We won't spoiler season 4.
They do bring it up again in season 4.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So there's like, I just want to make sure that if you haven't seen it, we don't like talk about it. Right. You know what I mean? But
anything that could possibly happen would probably be fresh. So
for sure. But
this is just Tariq's mind blowers. He has actually seen it before.
You know what's so funny is that I felt like, I'm like, there's no way I saw all of season 3. And I remember the night all of these came out, and it was frustrating because I've always lived my life thinking that I was a casual Rick and Morty fan, but I'm a fraud. I've watched all of these.
Love Rick and Morty. Love it.
Yeah,
oh, it's so funny.
Join me.
This episode's really gross in terms of all of the stuff in Beth's like play world with the what's her friend's name? Thomas? What is
Tommy.
it? Or,
Tommy. King Tommy.
King Tommy. It's got a lot of real gross aspects to it, but like I really like the ways that like it does once again highlight the thing that we've been talking about all season, is that like Beth is really stubborn, just like Rick. And she's just like so insistent on like, we need to do this. We need to save Tommy. And Rick's like, no, this is a waste of time. Let's not do it. But I really like the ways that it presents their relationship and it brings it to the forefront more than any other episode has. Like, this is really our only Rick and Beth adventure. Like, I don't know if we have any other Rick and Beth adventures. And it's interesting. Like, it's really interesting to see how their dynamic works and how she is still very stubborn and wants to do her own thing, but also is like a little unwilling to like fully stand up to her dad, you know?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's an interesting episode as well, because I think that it's kind of a snapshot into the Rick that we don't get to see, which was the Rick that really is just her dad. That's not her dad, like necessarily the scientist or whatever. I mean, obviously it all ties into him being the scientist, but this is kind of an episode that really shows like the core dynamics of her growing up as a little girl and wanting to spend more time with her father and coming up with these ways to act out and to, you know, be a bad kid or whatever, because she wanted that attention and she wanted that love. And she kept asking him to build her like crazy serial killer murder weapons because she just wanted to spend that time with him. And she also is kind of murdery, which is great. But I really like that when he does go through and shows her all of the ways in which he made Fruity Land so special and so specific for her, like how he makes the water breathable, or how the rainbows are actual real rainbows, or the ground is bouncy. And he took all of this like special care and effort to give his daughter something that was so much fucking cooler than anything any other dad on the planet has ever given their kid to play with. I mean, it's the ultimate fucking toy. And I think that it does really show that that did come from a place of love, and it did come from a place of wanting to protect her, in addition to being, you know, just a cool whatever sci-fi ploy to get us interested.
Right. And also a way for him to like keep her busy and safe while he did his own stuff.
He did his own shit, but also it was because she was such a fucking nightmare. She was such a terror. She was like causing neighborhood small animals and children to go missing. So sounds like we had a little baby Ted Bundy on our hands.
maybe he saved her.
I mean, it sounds like he kept her out of jail. Like,
right?
Yeah, true. I think it's really interesting, and I think like the question posed to her, where it's just like, well, if you want, I can let you go be me. You can go do your own universe hopping situation. Go out and have your own adventures, and I'll leave a clone here for you, so you know your kids and family are okay. And that is just a wild thing to offer somebody. Like, I
mean, that's the ultimate gift, right? I mean, that would solve so many of my fucking problems if I could have like a Whitney at home to make sure that Pugsley like never pooped in the house ever again, but also a Whitney that could like go outside and do shit. That would be fucking great. That sounds awesome. I mean, everybody wants to be able to have, you know, to quote Hannah Montana, the best of both worlds. Everybody wants full permission to be completely the two separate parts of themselves. And this is not only, I mean, this isn't just like somebody's dad saying like, hey, yeah, I'm giving you permission to be yourself. This is basically a science genius god not only giving her permission, but the means in which to do this for herself. The means to do it.
I think this is a really good episode for learning more about Beth and Rick and their relationship. It's a good one. You guys have any other thoughts about this? There's just a lot of love in there
behind. Oh, sorry.
No.
I was just saying, there's just like a lot of love in there behind all of the bullshit. I think that this is a really good episode to showcase how much love he actually has for her.
Right.
Despite,
agreed,
you know, everything else about him that sucks.
Yeah. Yup. Agreed. All right, should we move on to the finale?
Let's do it.
Dog.
Let's get out of here.
310.
I can't believe I fucked up the word penultimate earlier. I'm still embarrassed. I know that was like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah,
I said finale instead of penultimate. God, what a fucking bitch.
Mind blowers.
We both judged you.
Yeah,
and
mind blower that for me. Can we please mind blower that for me?
We'll see. I think it's going to be funnier if we leave it in along with this conversation.
Along with this conversation about mind blowing it.
And also the one we're going to have after it.
Yay! Wow.
We might need to mind blow Paddington too, though.
No!
All right, let's talk about
I can't believe you're the one saying that. You're the least likely person who would ever even suggest mind-blowing Paddington 2.
If I could erase Paddington 2 from my mind and rewatch Paddington 2 again for the first time, I would do it.
There's a lot of stuff I have like that. Man, there's so much. Right? Oh, my God.
Watching stuff for the first time is crazy. Oh, man. All right. The Rickchurian Mortydate. Paddington 2 is great. The Rickchurian Mortydate. This is basically... I think what this episode comes down to is it is a dick measuring contest between Rick and Morty and the President of the United States. That's what this episode is. And I think that that's a really funny premise to do 3 seasons deep into the show, because like at this point we know Rick and Morty have like, you know, saved the world on multiple occasions. So we know that the president knows and understands who they are. So like, obviously they would have some sort of relationship with the government in terms of like helping things like this, you know, solving issues in the world. And the idea that Rick and Morty are both just like so fucking tired of answering the president's
are just
calls.
bored of being the president's personal Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Like,
I really like that premise. I think it's really funny. Yeah, this is interesting.
Okay,
this
now
episode by Dan Harmon.
I do have to insist that we rank our favorite locations within the White House. So what are y'all's? Because here are our options. We have the Oval Office, obviously, the Kennedy sex tunnels, the Truman Cocaine Lounge, the McKinley Hooker Dump, and the Lincoln Slave Coliseum. So I'm gonna go with Truman Cocaine Lounge all the way. That's the one that I want to visit. I want to go to the Truman Cocaine Lounge more than I want most things.
For me, it's gonna be either the Truman Cocaine Lounge or possibly the Kennedy sex tunnels.
It's just that the sex tunnels didn't really look that like what was sexy about the tunnels? I didn't really see like, okay, what like
I don't remember what they look like. I just like the name.
They're just I like the name too. Listen, you can't go wrong with the name Kennedy sex tunnels.
You know what I think they are?
However.
You know what I think the implication is now that I'm thinking about it? I think the implication is not that they are where they have sex, but they're where it's how the Kennedys traveled to have sex secretly.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the Lincoln Tunnel, but just for the Kennedys and their penises.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god!
Like this is how they would sneak all the ladies and gents in and out of the White House for the Kennedys to have sex with.
Yeah. So it's one of those two. I'm mostly going by names. Those are funny. Those are very funny.
That's really funny.
Okay, so this episode, I think we mentioned it earlier how we have these like meta textual jokes, and this one is my favorite because of the Minecraft stuff. They're playing Minecraft.
Yes, here it is.
And Rick goes,
this is it.
South Park did it 4 years ago, Morty, and which is true. And he goes, "Oh, they're fast." He goes, "Or we're slow."
We're slow. So funny.
It's so good, and it's so true because this season took so damn long for them to make. It was a ridiculous amount of time for them to make this season.
Both of them are right though, because they make South Park in a week, so they are fast.
They are fast. Yeah, like the comparison is wild. Like I'm sure there were, you know, I'm sure that between the first episode of Rick and Morty and this episode, there were probably twice as many episodes of South Park.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Easily.
It's wild. Yeah, this one has some fun stuff. Like I like the way that Rick and Morty are just always one step ahead of the president, and it's I don't know, it's just fun. It's like this episode doesn't stand out to me as one of my favorites, but I had a lot of fun watching it. Like it was entertaining to me. Yeah.
It's one of my favorites in terms of how much fun I have watching it. Like it's just a fun one. It's a nice little romp. It's a jaunt. I would use romp and jaunt to describe this episode.
Tariq, you got any thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I think the fight is gorgeous. With Rick and the president. I think it's gorgeous. It's brilliantly animated. I love all of that stuff. I love the conversation that they have where Rick is like, "I'll leave if I get a selfie," and it's like, "Well, you're not getting a selfie." He's like, "Okay, so I'm not leaving." He said, "No, but you're not leaving because I'm not going to let you leave." I like that a lot. I think that stuff is really good.
I like the tech in this one. I like even though I feel like one of the things that's starting to make the show a little more, unfortunately, more predictable is the fact that Rick is just a god and can do anything. This episode does his like godlike tech action in a really fun way. I loved the part where like the president comes out on the mech and is gonna machine gun him, and he just creates all the versions of himself around him, and then they all start cartwheeling around so that he can't hit any of them.
Oh, that's the best visual.
Like a funny concept and visually so funny. Like him just smiling and laughing as he cartwheels around. It's really good.
Well, I just love the visuals of them falling through the layers of the White House.
Oh yeah, that's really good
totally.
Too. It's gorgeous.
Passing the Truman Cocaine Lounge and so on and so forth as they crash through each layer, I thought was just a really lovely detail.
I also loved, even though it was just weird, I loved the like the little twin kids who like started attacking Rick.
Just that was the little so sleeper agents.
It's pretty good though. Yeah, and then I guess the thing that we have to talk about most of all before we finish this up is just the wrapping up of the Beth Jerry divorce story and all that stuff. Yeah.
So this one has the second part of that realization that I said I had, because here Rick tells Beth that she is his daughter to comfort her, which is the total opposite of what he did the last time. So. Granted, I don't remember what happens in the 4th season, but I feel like this might have something to do with it. And I remember when this came out, I remember being really annoyed by the Jerry and Beth getting back together thing. But now I think it's fine now. I think I just was really obsessed with the fact that they were, like, nobody else was doing, like, at least not adult animation. They weren't doing stuff like that. Like, just like, no, you know what? The main family that's been here the whole time, they're broken up, it's divorced, and we're doing that. That's where we are. Right. And I was really impressed that they were, like, letting their nuts hang with that. But then when they didn't, I remember being really annoyed. But now I do kind of think it's fine, because I do think I think it's interesting how they got like this clone stuff going on and everything like that. They don't just make them get back together. They do. Right. It is interesting. I think. Yeah. So I think that's.
I feel like in context of the season, they did like earn that. Like I feels like. It does kind of feel like they belong together, even though Jerry sucks, but also Beth kind of sucks. Like they all have their own problems, you know? And so, but I also think that the real impetus for them doing that was, I feel like I think based on the amount of time it took them to make this season, they probably struggled to figure out how to do this all season. I think because you've got Jerry in this separate place, and all of a sudden, all of Beth and Jerry's stories are separated. You know what I mean? Like every single one. And so there's some episodes that I don't think Jerry's even in. It's and so it feels to me like, even though I do think they did a great job getting back there, I feel like it was more of a functional thing for them to be like, we should probably get back to. I mean, they even say as much. They say things will be like season 1, but more streamlined. They say that.
Exactly.
And so, like, they basically said as much. They're like, all right, well, we gotta get this back to what we're good at. You know, even though I quite like this season, and actually, I think I like this season more than season 4. I do understand it, like, from the writing perspective of like, well, it feels like the story served its purpose and did a lot of really interesting things with the characters. But it didn't need to be a thing that continued on after this.
I guess
it could have been. I think I would have been cool with it if it did. Yeah.
I think I would have been cool either way. I really do. I really do think.
Yeah, like, I would have been cool either way.
Yeah. Now with just like in watching the show for the past 3 weeks and like getting to this one and seeing what they did and how they did it, it's like, yeah, like either way could lead to really interesting things. So I'm fine with it. I really am.
For sure.
Hell yeah.
Well, that's Rick and Morty season 3. You guys have any like general big thoughts? What do you think about season 3 overall? Do you love season 3? Is it your favorite? Is it your least favorite? What do you think?
I do think season 3 is my favorite, and I do love season 3, and I love it with my whole entire heart. And man, I fucking love Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty for 100 years.
Yeah. Tariq, how about you? No.
How about you?
Wait.
How about you?
How about you,
Okay,
friend?
my
What are your
computer
thoughts?
froze.
What are your hopes and dreams?
My
It
computer
froze?
like froze for a second, and I was like, "Wait, okay."
Dang it, we're gonna have to mind blow this or leave it in.
Yeah,
we
we're just
are.
gonna have to mind
You
blow.
decide. You decide, Mikey.
Wait, I love the idea of calling it mind blowing it.
Yeah.
Really funny. Anyways, somehow it mind blew out of here that I asked Tariq, how do you feel about season 3?
Got it. I felt like that's what happened, and I'm like, oh man, I'm just looking and I'm like grabbing my beard and shit. I really like this one. I'm kind of battling with myself if I like it more than 2 or equal as 2 or maybe a little less, but it's like it's there with 2 for me. Like I said, this was the easiest watch. I don't know what it is that's different. But it really was the easiest watch. I love there's a lot of really great characterization things here. A lot of really great lines. Some of my favorite lines in the whole show are here. Like it's a good season. I remember when this came out, I remember being like frustrated, like, they're doing the serialization thing wrong. But now it's like, fam, no, they're not. Who cares? It's fine.
Doing it their own way.
Right.
I think part of me does really wish Rick and Morty would lean more into the serialization thing, but at the same time, it's like, well, if that's not what the story they want to tell, then like I don't want them to like to do it on my accord, I want them to tell the story they're inspired to tell.
Right.
And like, even though I feel like I've maybe over the years, like Rick and Morty has started to feel a little less fresh to me. Like I was so stoked on it for those first couple years, and now it's just like a show I will definitely watch every week when it's out and quite like, but it isn't a show that I'm like as out of my mind stoked about as I used to be. But even despite that, like I it's hard to argue that it's not one of the funniest adult animated shows on TV right now. It's just like, it's really good. It's really, really fucking good. This season for me, rewatching this this rewatch has been really enlightening because like I said earlier, like I was it had been so long since I watched this show, other than season 4 last year. So rewatching seasons 1 through 3 was a real experience because previously I was kind of like, well, yeah, I like seasons 1 and then 2 and then 3, and 1 really moved down and 3 really moved up. I think 2 is still my favorite because I think 2 marries some of the best character stuff, and I think 2 is the funniest for me personally. Season 3 I think does maybe the best character work the show's ever done, and it's still definitely very funny, but I don't think season 3 is as funny as seasons 1 or 2, even though it's like still very funny. There's so much good stuff in it,
I understand that.
So many great concepts. It's really good.
Nothing will ever top Morty's mind blowers for me, dude. I just can't.
Just wait till Morty's mind blowers 2. They're gonna do another.
Dude, I want it so bad.
I just looked at my ranking. Oh, this is gonna suck. Okay.
I changed mine.
Are you gonna be mean to Morty's mind blowers and then I'm gonna have to kill you?
Yeah.
I don't even think I wrote down a ranking. I don't care.
I changed mine around a little bit while we were talking, but let's do it. Let's move into the rankings. You want to talk about the rankings?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I'll give mine first.
Yeah.
10, Vindicators 3, The Return of Worldender. 9, Rickmancing the Stone. 8, The Rickchurian Mortydate. 7, The ABCs of Beth. 6, The Whirly Conspiracy. 5, Pickle Rick. 4, Rest and Ricklaxation. 3, Morty's Mind Blowers. 2, Rickshank Rickdemption. And 1, Ricklantis Mixup / Tales from the Citadel.
We have one in common.
Hell yeah.
That is all.
And we're going to talk about it.
Hell yeah. Okay, I got number 10, I got Vindicators 3. Number 9, Morty's Mind Blowers. Number 8, the Ricklantis Mixup. Number 7, Pickle Rick. Number 6, how do you say this? The finale. Number 5,
Rickchurian Mortydate.
Yeah.
Rickchurian Mortydate. There it is. Number 5, the ABCs of Beth. Number 4, the Whirly Conspiracy. Number 3, Rickmancing the Stone, number 2, Rest and Ricklaxation, number 1, the Rickshank Rickdemption.
Woohoo!
We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk.
Right.
Whitney,
wow,
what do you got?
Sounds like you guys are gonna fight. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't write them down, so I'm just going off the top of my head here.
Let's do it.
But okay, so number 10, Vindicators 3. I just don't like that episode. It's my least favorite.
All of us have it at the last.
Overall, Rick and Morty across all seasons, it's my least favorite episode. I just don't give a shit about it. Sorry, noob, love you, but no thanks. Then 9 is probably Rickmancing the Stone, and then 8 would be Whirly Conspiracy. 7 Pickle Rick. 6 Rest and Ricklaxation. 5 Rickshank Rickdemption. 4 ABCs of Beth. 3 Tales from the Citadel. What am I missing? I'm missing one of them. Anyways, my number 1 is Morty's Mind Blowers.
Morty's Mind
That's
Blowers.
the only one that matters.
Ricklantis Mixup. Oh, Tales from the Citadel, you just said 3.
Did I say that for 3? Did I miss Rickshank Rickdemption? Is that the one I missed? Because that one's in my top 3.
I think you said it. Yeah.
Well,
we'll go back and look at it.
It's too many.
It doesn't
Ricks,
matter.
man.
I don't need numbers. They're in my heart.
There it is.
All right. So, Tariq, I know you put my number 1 low, but the reason that it stings so hard is because it's not only my favorite of the season. That is my favorite episode of the show. That is my favorite episode of Rick and Morty. And it has been since it aired. Yeah, that's so interesting that it's so low for you. That was like one for me that was so instantaneously like, this is what I want from the show. You know what I mean? Like, this is it. So curious. That's so interesting that it's so low for you. What's your number 1? Rickshank Rickdemption? That's my number 2. So that's fair. It's pretty fair. Yeah.
It's a great opener. I think it might just be what each of us want out of the show, I think.
Right.
Because I'm like that with any show. I really just like the heart and family stuff. So whenever the family's together, or whenever like you realize what characters mean to each other, those are always kind of like this is the one right here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so the ones that don't do that always kind of end up lower for me. And that might really just be it. You know, I'm not like super lore guy, like looking to see like, you know what I mean? So that might be part of it.
So interesting though, because like generally though, like, I mean, I'm very much on both pages there. Like obviously you can tell from all my Futurama rankings, like I love, like heart is a major priority for me. For some reason with this show, maybe it's just because the show is seemingly so adverse to giving us true heartfelt moments that it's like, okay, well maybe that's not what I watch the show for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah. Even though I do love it when they do give us good moments like that. But yeah, like to me, the Tales from the Citadel is just such, I guess it's because it's an episode, like I said before, it's a thing that no other show could do. And it was executed in such an interesting way that not only told like a ton of simultaneously really interesting stories, it also like left us on this insane affecting cliffhanger that to me is like one of the things in the show that I'm just like, cannot wait to see how they follow this up. So
same. I'm obsessed with this storyline. This is my favorite storyline of the whole series.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, this was a fucking good episode. We had a lot of good conversations. We laughed. We cried. We talked about Paddington too. We mind blew. Whitney,
we mind blew.
Whitney, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm truly just like very honored that you let me come on for Rick and Morty week, because I'm obsessed with Rick and Morty. I think you can tell now. And I'm really happy and really grateful that you guys picked me for this week. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
You were a fun guest, this is a great time. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
Hell yeah, man. So I am Whitney Van Lanningham, mother of pugs. You can find me on all social media everywhere as @WhitneyPuppy. And then I just started a brand new motherfucking YouTube channel with my boyfriend. It is called WhitneyVision. We chose that name because after Nerdwire was unceremoniously dismembered by the government, aka I-1, we, kind of just lost our fucking baby and we lost our fucking minds and we decided to make something new. What is WhitneyVision if not Nerdwire persevering? So we're gonna be doing so much more with that channel. I know we only have a couple videos up right now, but I would really appreciate it if you're listening. If you want to go check that out, give us a follow. It'll be fun. I promise.
Yeah, for real, guys. Go check out WhitneyVision. Whitney and Brett are two of my favorite people, and I've been friends with. I became friends with them just because we all talk about this. We talk about the same stuff on the internet. About cartoons. They invited me onto their live stream ones, and we just became genuine IRL friends. And like, they work so hard, and they worked so hard on Nerdwire. And I can't even imagine if someone would take my channel away from me. It's like that's like just wild to think about, and so like
it sucks.
Yeah.
Don't recommend it. Don't get in that place, guys. Don't do it. Don't let that happen to you.
But you guys should definitely go check out WhitneyVision. They got a lot of cool stuff cooking. They got a couple great videos up, and they deserve all the support. They're really great.
Thank you, my sweet baby. I appreciate that.
Yeah, guys, this was great. This was a lot of fun.
Yay, this was so fun.
Let's do the wrap up. Okay, thank you to Michael Yunez for producing and editing this podcast. Thank you for Kerrifique for our artwork. Thank you for Jakeneutron for our theme song. Thank you to Tariq and Whitney for talking about Rick and Morty with me today.
Heart right here. You can't see it on Spotify.
Yeah, Spotify. Hey, if you want to see the heart, you better watch on YouTube. You can't listen to it. And with that,
you can't hear hearts.
You can't hear hearts. And with that, we'll see you fucking later. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Bye. This is Pugsley. This is my baby boy. Pugsley. His name is Pugsley Adams, and he's a good one.